Emily Turner's frozen fingers slipped. The antique vase shattered across marble. Richard Caldwell's face twisted with rage as he grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the front door, into a Christmas Eve blizzard that would kill her in minutes. She begged. He threw her outside anyway, left to die in the snow while decorating a mansion for a man she'd never met. A mafia boss named Nicholas Grimaldiro, who was about to come home and discover his favorite maid missing. What happens next will change everything. Like this video and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The vase hit the floor at exactly 6:47 p.m. Emily Turner watched it happen in slow motion, the antique Italian porcelain slipping through her numb fingers, spinning twice in the air before exploding across the white marble entryway like a grenade. Shards skittered in every direction. The sound echoed through 3 floors of the Grimaldiro mansion, bouncing off crystal chandeliers and mahogany walls until the entire estate seemed to hold its breath. She froze, hands still extended where the vase had been. Eyes locked on the destruction spreading across the floor in a starburst pattern of broken ceramic and spilled water. Pine branches from the Christmas arrangement lay scattered among the wreckage, their needles already staining the grout between marble tiles. No. The word came out barely louder than a whisper. No, no, no! What the hell did you just do? Richard Caldwell's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Emily's head snapped up to find him standing at the top of the grand staircase, one hand gripping the banister hard enough to turn his knuckles white. The estate's house manager had appeared out of nowhere, the way he always did. His tall frame backlit by the golden glow of the Christmas lights she'd spent all afternoon stringing along the second-floor railing. Emily's throat closed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You didn't mean to destroy a 15th century Medici vase worth more than you'll earn in your entire pathetic life? Richard descended the stairs slowly, deliberately, each footstep precise and controlled. His perfectly pressed suit didn't have a single wrinkle. His silver hair was combed back without a strand out of place. Everything about him screamed authority and control. You didn't mean to ruin a piece Mr. Grimaldiro acquired at auction in Florence 3 years ago. I'll pay for it. Emily heard how stupid the words sounded even as they left her mouth. I'll work extra hours. I'll pay for it? Richard stopped 3 steps from the bottom, towering over her. You make $11 an hour cleaning toilets and polishing floors. That vase was worth $75,000. The number hit Emily like a physical blow. Her knees went weak. 75,000. She did the math automatically, a habit from the foster homes where every dollar had mattered. That was almost 7,000 hours of work, 3.5 years of her life before taxes. She couldn't breathe. Please. Emily dropped to her knees and started gathering the largest pieces with shaking hands. A sharp edge sliced her palm open. Blood welled up immediately, mixing with the water and turning pink against the white marble. She didn't stop. Please, I can fix this. I can glue it back together. Don't touch it! Richard's voice cracked like a whip. He crossed the remaining distance in 2 strides and grabbed her wrist, yanking her upright hard enough to make her shoulder scream in protest. The porcelain shard fell from her bleeding hand and shattered into smaller pieces. You've done enough damage! Emily tried to pull away. Richard's grip tightened, his fingers dug into her wrist until she felt bones grinding together. Let go, she whispered. You're hurting me. I'm hurting you? Richard leaned closer. His breath smelled like expensive cologne and mint. Do you have any concept of what you've just cost this household? What you've cost Mr. Grimaldiro? It was an accident. An accident. He released her wrist and stepped back, straightening his already perfect tie. You're a clumsy, careless child who has no business working in an estate of this caliber. I told Mr. Grimaldiro when Maria recommended you that hiring a 19-year-old with no experience was a mistake. I told him you weren't ready for this level of responsibility. The words landed exactly where Richard intended them to. Emily had only been working at the mansion for 4 months, the longest she'd held any job since aging out of the foster system at 18. Maria Santos, the head housekeeper and the closest thing to family Emily had left, had vouched for her personally. Promised Richard and Mr. Grimaldiro that Emily was reliable, hardworking, trustworthy. Now this. Maria will be so disappointed in you, Richard said softly, reading her face. After everything she's done. training you, defending you, convincing Mr. Grimaldiro to overlook your complete lack of qualifications. Emily's vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of this man. I'll tell Mr. Grimaldiro myself. I'll apologize. I'll take responsibility. Mr. Grimaldiro isn't here. Richard checked his watch. He's in Chicago closing a business deal and won't be back until late tonight, which means this disaster falls under my jurisdiction. He looked at her the way someone might examine a bug they were about to crush. Get your things. You're fired. The floor dropped out from under Emily's world. You can't... She stopped herself. Richard absolutely could fire her. He was the estate manager. He had authority over all household staff. Please, please don't do this. I need this job. I don't have anywhere else to go. You should have thought of that before you destroyed irreplaceable property. I'll sleep in my car. I'll pay you back somehow. Just don't... You don't have a car, Richard said flatly. You take the bus from that studio apartment in the bad part of town, the one with the broken heater that Maria felt so sorry about. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Don't worry. I'm sure there are plenty of fast food restaurants hiring. You're much more suited to that kind of work anyway. Something hot and furious flared in Emily's chest. She'd been looked down on her entire life. Foster parents who saw her as a government check. Social workers who saw her as a case file. Teachers who saw her as a case file. Teachers who saw her as a statistic. But she'd kept fighting, kept pushing, gotten her GED, enrolled in community college business classes. Found this job that paid enough to cover tuition and rent. She wasn't going to let this cruel bastard take it all away. I want to talk to Mr. Grimaldiro, Emily said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. When he gets back. I want to explain what happened and apologize directly. That's fair. Richard's expression darkened. You don't get to make demands. I'm not demanding anything. I'm asking for basic fairness. Let Mr. Grimaldiro decide if I should be fired, not you. For a long moment, Richard just stared at her. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly. Snow pelted against the windows. The blizzard that had been threatening all day had finally arrived. Wind howled around the corners of the mansion like something alive and angry. Then Richard smiled again. This time it was genuinely pleased. You want to wait for Mr. Grimaldiro? He asked quietly. Fine. Wait outside. Emily's blood went cold. What? You heard me. Richard walked to the ornate coat closet near the front door and pulled out Emily's thin winter jacket, the threadbare thing she'd bought at Goodwill 3 years ago. He tossed it at her feet. Put that on and wait outside until Mr. Grimaldiro returns. Then you can explain yourself to him personally. It's a blizzard out there. Then I suggest you dress warmly. Richard crossed to the front door and opened it. Arctic wind exploded into the entryway, scattering the broken porcelain and making the Christmas lights flicker. Snow swirled across the marble floor. The temperature dropped 20 degrees instantly. Unless you'd prefer to be fired right now and escorted off the property? Emily stared at the open door, at the solid wall of white beyond it. The wind screamed. She couldn't see more than 5 feet into the storm. He couldn't be serious. You're insane, she whispered. I'll freeze to death out there. You'll be fine. Richard checked his watch again. Mr. Grimaldiro should be back in 2 or 3 hours. 4 at most. The covered porch has some protection from the wind. Just stay close to the door. Please, make your choice, Emily. Wait outside for Mr. Grimaldiro, or leave the property immediately and never come back. Emily's hands were shaking so badly she could barely pick up her jacket. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. Nobody was this cruel. Nobody would actually force someone outside in a blizzard over a broken vase. But Richard just stood there holding the door open, snow accumulating on his perfect suit, expression completely calm. He was serious. Emily pulled on her jacket with numb fingers. The thin material did almost nothing against the cold already pouring through the doorway. Her work uniform, black pants and a white button-down shirt, wouldn't help either. She wasn't wearing a hat or gloves. Her sneakers had holes in them. Richard, please. One last try. I'm begging you, don't do this. 2 or 3 hours, he repeated. Stay on the porch. Mr. Grimaldiro will see you when he arrives. Emily walked toward the door because there was no other choice. The moment she crossed the threshold, the cold hit her like a fist. Wind tore at her jacket and whipped her dark hair across her face. Snow instantly soaked through her sneakers. She turned back to say something, anything, but Richard had already slammed the door shut. The lock clicked. Emily stood alone on the covered porch of the Grimaldiro mansion while a Christmas Eve blizzard tried to kill her. The porch was massive, 30 feet wide with thick columns and a solid roof, but it offered almost no protection. Wind came from every direction, driving snow horizontally across the space and piling it up against the walls. Within minutes, Emily's fingers and toes went numb. Within 10 minutes, her whole body was shaking violently. She huddled against the front door and pounded on it with her fist. "Richard, let me in, please!" No response. The windows on either side of the door glowed warmly. She could see the Christmas tree in the front room, decorated with the ornaments she'd spent all morning carefully hanging. Could see the lights she'd strung along the staircase where Richard had appeared like an avenging angel. Everything looked beautiful, warm, safe. Emily pounded harder. "Someone, anyone, please!" Nothing. The mansion had over a dozen staff members working tonight, preparing for Mr. Grimaldiro's return. Someone had to hear her. Maria was probably in the kitchen coordinating Christmas Eve dinner. Carlos was likely in the security office. Someone would notice she was missing. But the minutes crawled by and no one came. Emily's teeth chattered so hard she bit her tongue. Blood filled her mouth. The shaking got worse, violent, uncontrollable tremors that made her bones ache. Her hands had turned white. She couldn't feel her feet anymore. 20 minutes outside and she was already in trouble. She tried to think. The porch wrapped around the entire mansion. Maybe there was a door or window she could break to get inside. She could handle being arrested for breaking and entering. At least she'd be alive. Emily forced herself to move. Every step was agony. The wind fought her. Snow piled up past her ankles in places, soaking through her useless sneakers and freezing her feet solid. She made it to the corner of the porch and looked around the side of the mansion. More windows. All locked. All glowing with warm light that might as well have been on another planet. She kept going. Her movements were getting slower, clumsier. The violent shaking had started to ease up, which some distant part of her brain recognized as a bad sign. That meant her core temperature was dropping. Her body was shutting down. Emily stumbled and caught herself against a column. Her hands had no grip strength left. She slid down to her knees in the snow and tried to stand again. Nothing happened. Her legs wouldn't respond. Panic flooded through her, sharp and clarifying. She was dying, actually dying, freezing to death on Christmas Eve while people sat warm and comfortable 20 feet away. "Help!" The word came out slurred. "Please, someone help me!" The wind swallowed her voice. Snow fell heavier now, thick flakes that stuck to her eyelashes and made it hard to see. Emily crawled forward on her hands and knees, aiming for the next window. Maybe if she broke the glass. Maybe if she set off an alarm. She didn't make it. 10 feet from the window, Emily's arms gave out. She collapsed face first into snow that had drifted against the mansion's foundation. The cold didn't hurt anymore. That was nice. Everything was getting softer, quieter. She needed to get up, had to get up, but her body wouldn't listen. Emily thought about Maria finding her frozen corpse in the morning, the kind older woman who had given her a chance when no one else would, who had taught her how to properly clean silver and organize a linen closet and set a formal dining table, who had invited Emily to her apartment for dinner on Thanksgiving because she knew Emily had nowhere else to go. Maria would blame herself. That thought hurt worse than the cold. Emily tried one more time to move, managed to get one arm underneath her, started to push up. The world spun violently and she collapsed again, this time rolling onto her side. Snow covered her immediately. She couldn't feel most of her body now, couldn't feel her hands or feet or face. This was it. This was how she died. 19 years old, alone, frozen to death because she dropped a vase. The unfairness of it made her want to scream, but she didn't have the energy left. Emily's eyes drifted closed. The wind sounded farther away now, distant, like it was happening to someone else. She never heard the car pull up the long driveway. Nicholas Grimaldiro knew something was wrong before he even opened the car door. The mansion's front porch light was on. That was normal, but the door itself was barely visible through the blizzard, and there were no staff members waiting to greet him like there should have been. Richard always had someone ready to take coats and briefcases and provide a quick briefing on household matters. Tonight, there was nothing but snow and wind and darkness. "This storm is getting worse," Luca Moretti said from the driver's seat. Nicholas's second-in-command and head of security looked exhausted. They'd been traveling for 16 hours, flying back from Chicago through deteriorating weather conditions that had nearly grounded their plane. "We should get inside before the power goes out." Nicholas nodded absently, his attention caught by something else that was wrong. He scrolled through his phone, checking the household management app that Richard insisted on using. The evening schedule showed Emily Turner assigned to decorating duties until 7 p.m., then coffee service in the study at 7:30. It was now 9:15 p.m., and Nicholas hadn't received his coffee. That might not sound like much, but Emily Turner had been bringing Nicholas his evening coffee every single night for 4 months without fail. The girl was obsessively punctual, obsessively reliable. He'd noticed that about her almost immediately, the way she moved through the mansion like she was afraid of taking up too much space, the way she triple-checked every task, the way she never asked for anything. She reminded Nicholas of himself at 19, before he'd become the person people feared. "Something's off," Nicholas said. He stepped out of the Escalade into knee-deep snow and immediately regretted not changing out of his business suit. The cold hit him like a physical wall. "Where the hell is everyone?" Luca joined him, equally underdressed for a blizzard. "Maybe they didn't expect us back this early. You told Richard we might stay in Chicago another night. I also called him 3 hours ago and said we were coming home." Nicholas pulled out his phone and dialed Richard's number. It went straight to voicemail. He tried the main house line. No answer. "This is wrong. You think something happened?" Nicholas didn't answer. He started toward the front door, squinting against the snow. The Grimaldiro mansion sat on 80 acres of private land in upstate New York, surrounded by forest and protected by a state-of-the-art security system. Nothing happened here without Nicholas knowing about it. Except tonight, apparently. He reached the front porch and immediately noticed the snow piled up against the door was disturbed. Someone had been out here. Recently. Footprints led away from the entrance, already half filled with fresh snow but still visible. "Boss," Luca said quietly. He was looking at something near the column. Nicholas followed his gaze and felt his blood turn to ice. There was a body in the snow. He moved without thinking, crossing the porch in 3 strides and dropping to his knees beside the small figure, half buried in a drift. Dark hair, thin jacket, white shirt visible through the snow. Emily. Jesus Christ. Nicholas grabbed her shoulder and turned her over. Her face was white, lips blue, eyes closed. She wasn't moving. Emily, can you hear me?" Nothing. Her skin was like ice under his hands. Luca appeared beside him. "Is she alive?" Nicholas pressed 2 fingers against her throat, searching for a pulse. For 10 seconds, he felt nothing and his heart stopped. Then, there, faint, slow, but present. "She's alive." Nicholas stripped off his suit jacket and wrapped it around Emily's frozen body. It was a useless gesture. His jacket was already soaked and she needed real heat, real medical attention, but he couldn't just leave her lying in the snow. "Call Dr. Morrison. Tell him we have a severe hypothermia case and he needs to get here now. The roads are completely snowed in. I don't care if he has to walk. Get him here." Nicholas scooped Emily into his arms and stood up. She weighed almost nothing. He could feel her bones through the thin uniform. "Open the door." Luca tried the handle. Locked. He pulled out his key card and swiped it. Nothing happened. "Security system's not responding." "Then break the goddamn window." Luca grabbed a decorative stone from the porch railing and smashed it through the window beside the door. Glass exploded inward. He reached through, unlocked the door from the inside, and pushed it open. Warm air poured out. The Christmas tree sparkled in the front room exactly the way Nicholas liked it. Everything looked perfect and peaceful and normal, except for the girl dying in his arms. Nicholas carried Emily straight through the entryway, his shoes crunching on broken glass and porcelain scattered across the marble floor, and headed for the stairs. "Find Maria and get her to the guest suite next to my room. I need blankets, hot water, dry clothes, everything." "What about Richard?" "Find him too. I want to know what the hell happened here." Nicholas took the stairs 2 at a time. Emily's head lolled against his shoulder. Her breathing was so shallow he could barely feel it. How long had she been outside? An hour? 2? In this temperature, it didn't take long for hypothermia to kill. He kicked open the door to the guest suite, a massive bedroom with its own fireplace and bathroom that he kept available for his most trusted associates, and laid Emily carefully on the bed. Her clothes were soaked through and crusted with ice. Leaving her in them would make things worse. Nicholas hesitated for exactly 2 seconds, then started unbuttoning her shirt with fingers that shook from cold and anger. He got the wet uniform off her, wrapped her in the duvet from the bed, and went to start the fireplace. The logs caught immediately, flames spreading fast and throwing heat into the room. It wasn't enough. Emily needed her core temperature raised from the inside. Nicholas went into the bathroom, started filling the massive tub with lukewarm water, not hot, that would shock her system, and grabbed every towel he could find. When he came back to the bedroom, Maria was rushing through the door with her arms full of blankets. The older woman took one look at Emily and went pale. Dios mío, what happened to her? That's what I want to know. Nicholas helped Maria wrap Emily in dry blankets, layering them carefully. She was outside, on the porch, freezing to death. Outside? Maria's voice cracked. Why would she be outside? I was hoping you could tell me. I don't... Maria stopped. Her expression shifted from confusion to horror. The vase. Oh no. Ricardo said she broke the Medici vase and he sent her home early. He told me she left at 7. Nicholas felt something cold and murderous settle in his chest. He told you she left? See, I was in the kitchen. Ricardo came in and said Emily broke a vase during decorating and was too upset to keep working. He said he called her a car service and sent her home. Maria looked at Emily's unconscious face. He lied to me. Where is he? His quarters, I think. He said he had paperwork. Nicholas was already moving. He left Emily with Maria and headed for the staff wing on the 3rd floor where Richard kept his private rooms. Luca intercepted him in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. Dr. Morrison says he can't get here for at least 2 hours, Luca reported. Roads are completely impassable. He's walking me through what to do until he arrives. He looked at Nicholas's expression. Where are you going? To have a conversation with Richard. Boss, maybe you should cool down first. I'm perfectly calm. Nicholas was. That was the dangerous part. The fury burning in his chest was cold and controlled and absolutely lethal. He'd built an empire on this kind of anger. Stay with Emily and Maria. Follow the doctor's instructions. If anything happens to her, I want to know immediately. He didn't wait for a response. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and walked straight to Richard's door. Didn't knock. Just turned the handle, unlocked, and pushed it open. Richard Caldwell sat at his antique desk, working on a laptop, a glass of expensive whiskey at his elbow. He looked up when Nicholas entered and had the audacity to smile. Mr. Grimaldiro, I didn't realize you were back. The storm must have delayed. Where's Emily? Nicholas asked quietly. Richard blinked. I'm sorry? Emily Turner. My employee. Where is she? I sent her home around 7. There was an incident with a vase during decorating and she was quite upset. I thought it best. You're lying. The smile slipped. Richard stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. I assure you, I would never lie about household matters. I found her on the front porch. Nicholas took a step forward. Richard took a step back. Unconscious, freezing to death, wearing nothing but a uniform and a jacket that wouldn't keep a dog warm. So I'm going to ask you one more time, where did you send Emily Turner? Richard's face went white. For the first time since Nicholas had met the man 5 years ago, the house manager looked genuinely afraid. There must be some mistake. I told her to wait on the porch until you arrived so she could apologize for breaking the vase. It was only supposed to be 30 minutes. You said you'd be back by 7:30. We got delayed by the storm. I called you 3 hours ago to tell you we'd be late. I never received... Richard stopped, looked at his phone lying on the desk. I had it on silent during my conference call with the wine supplier. I must have missed it. So you threw a teenage girl outside in a blizzard and then forgot about her. I didn't throw her anywhere. She chose to wait for you rather than accept termination. Richard was recovering his composure now, straightening up, finding his authority again. And frankly, sir, while I regret that the situation escalated beyond my intentions, Emily Turner destroyed a $75,000 piece of your personal collection. She needed to be held accountable. Nicholas stared at him. Held accountable. Yes, I run this household according to strict standards of excellence that you yourself established. When staff members fail to meet those standards, there are consequences. That's how we maintain the level of service you expect. By murdering them? Don't be dramatic. It was just supposed to scare her, make her understand the severity of her carelessness. Richard actually had the nerve to sound annoyed. How was I supposed to know you'd be hours late, or that she'd wander off the porch into the snow like an idiot? The cold fury in Nicholas's chest exploded into white-hot rage. He crossed the distance between them in 2 steps, grabbed Richard by the throat, and slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack the plaster. The house manager's eyes went wide with terror. "You put her outside in a blizzard," Nicholas said softly, "and left her there to die over a fucking vase." Richard clawed at Nicholas's hand, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Nicholas held him there for another 5 seconds, long enough for Richard to turn purple, long enough for real fear to flood his eyes, then released him. The house manager collapsed to the floor, gasping and coughing. "Get out," Nicholas said. "Pack your things and get out of my house. If you're still here in 20 minutes, I'll have Luca throw you into the storm the same way you threw Emily. Let's see how you like it." Richard scrambled to his feet, one hand pressed to his bruised throat. "You can't fire me. I have a contract. The contract is void. You endangered the life of another employee and lied about it. That's grounds for immediate termination." Nicholas pulled out his phone. "And I'm calling the police. You're going to be arrested for attempted murder." "Attempted murder? Are you insane? I'm the victim here. You just assaulted me." "Really?" Nicholas held up his phone. "Should we review the security footage from the front entrance? See exactly how you forced Emily outside and locked the door? I'm sure a jury would find that very interesting." Richard's face went from red to white. "I want to speak to my lawyer." "You can speak to him from a jail cell. Get out." For a moment, Richard just stood there, shaking with rage and fear and disbelief. Then he seemed to realize Nicholas was serious. He grabbed his coat and briefcase and headed for the door. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You're making a mistake." "The only mistake I made was trusting you." Nicholas didn't look at him. "You have 15 minutes. After that, you're trespassing." Richard left. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, then disappeared down the stairs. Nicholas stood alone in the empty room and realized his hands were shaking. Not from cold, from the effort of not killing Richard Caldwell with his bare hands. He'd built his reputation on control, on never letting emotion dictate his actions. But the image of Emily lying in the snow, blue-lipped and dying, had shattered something inside him. She was just a kid. 19 years old, working 2 jobs to pay for community college. Trying so damn hard to prove herself worthy of a chance that life had never given her, and Richard had tried to kill her over a vase. Nicholas pulled out his phone and dialed Luca. "How is she?" he asked when his second-in-command answered. "Dr. Morrison has us doing a lukewarm bath to raise her core temperature slowly. Her vitals are stabilizing. He thinks she'll be okay." Luca paused. "What happened with Richard?" "He's fired. I want him escorted off the property immediately and permanently banned from returning. Call our lawyers and have them draw up criminal charges. Attempted murder, assault, reckless endangerment, whatever sticks. I want him destroyed." "Boss, are you sure that's—" "I'm sure." "And Luca?" Nicholas looked out the window at the blizzard still raging outside. "Emily Turner is under my personal protection now. No one touches her. No one threatens her. No one so much as looks at her wrong. Understood?" "Understood." Nicholas ended the call and left Richard's room. He went back downstairs to the guest suite where Maria and Luca had moved Emily into the bathroom. She was in the tub now, still unconscious, but with better color returning to her face. Maria sat beside her, murmuring quietly in Spanish and stroking her hair. "How is she?" Nicholas asked. "Better." Maria didn't look up. "Dr. Morrison says another hour outside, and she would have died." Nicholas felt that information settle into his bones. He'd come so close to losing someone he barely knew, but somehow couldn't imagine this house without. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "This should never have happened." "It's not your fault. Ricardo is a cruel man. I should have seen it sooner." Maria finally looked up. Tears tracked down her lined face. "Emily is a good girl. She works so hard. She doesn't deserve this." "No, she doesn't." Nicholas crouched beside the tub. Emily's dark hair floated in the water. Her face was peaceful now, younger than ever. "When she wakes up, tell her she still has a job here. Tell her I want her to take as much time as she needs to recover. And tell her the vase didn't matter." You should tell her yourself. Nicholas shook his head. She doesn't need to wake up to the man whose house almost killed her. He stood up. I'll check in tomorrow. Call me if anything changes. He left before Maria could argue. Went to his own room and stripped out of his wet clothes and stood under a hot shower until the cold finally left his bones. But he couldn't shake the image of Emily lying in the snow, or the fact that if he'd been 30 minutes later, she would have been dead. That night, while the blizzard raged outside and Emily Turner fought her way back from the edge of death 2 doors away, Nicholas Grimaldiro made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. Richard Caldwell wasn't getting away with this, and Emily Turner was never going to be that vulnerable again. Not while Nicholas was still breathing. Emily woke up drowning. Water surrounded her, hot and suffocating, and panic slammed through her chest before her brain caught up with reality. Not drowning. Bath. She was in a bathtub. The water was warm, safe, but her body didn't believe it. She thrashed upward, gasping, water sloshing everywhere. Strong hands caught her shoulders and held her steady. Easy, mija. Easy. You're safe. Maria's voice, close and soothing. You're inside. You're warm. Nothing's going to hurt you. Emily's vision cleared slowly. She was in a bathroom she didn't recognize, all white marble and gold fixtures and a tub big enough for 3 people. Maria knelt beside it, one hand on Emily's shoulder, her weathered face creased with worry. Behind her stood a tall man in an expensive suit Emily had never seen before. Luca something. She'd heard the name but never met him. What? Emily's throat felt like sandpaper. What happened? You were outside in the blizzard, Maria said gently. You got hypothermia. Mr. Grimaldiro found you and brought you inside. The memory hit Emily all at once. The vase, Richard's rage, being thrown into the storm, the cold that had swallowed her whole. She looked down at herself and realized she was naked under the water, wearing only her bra and underwear. Heat flooded her face. Who undressed me? Mr. Grimaldiro, Luca said from his position by the door. His voice was matter-of-fact, professional. You were going to die if we didn't get your core temperature up. He made the call. Emily wanted to die of embarrassment instead. Nicholas Grimaldiro, the man who owned this entire estate, who she'd never even spoken to directly, who she'd only seen from a distance, had stripped her down and put her in his bathtub. Where is he? The question came out sharper than Emily intended. In his room. Maria squeezed her shoulder. He's been checking on you every 20 minutes since we got you stabilized. He's very worried. About getting sued, probably. Emily tried to sit up straighter. Her whole body ached. Her fingers and toes burned with returning circulation. Where's Richard? I need to explain about the vase before he tells Mr. Grimaldiro his version. Richard's gone, Luca interrupted. Fired. Banned from the property. Mr. Grimaldiro is pressing criminal charges for attempted murder. Emily's brain stuttered to a halt. What? He put you outside in a blizzard and left you there to die, Luca said flatly. That's attempted murder in New York. The police will be here in the morning to take statements. No. Emily shook her head hard enough to make water splash. No, he didn't try to murder me. He was just angry about the vase. He told me to wait on the porch for Mr. Grimaldiro to get back. It was my choice. He gave you a choice between freezing to death or losing your job. Maria's voice went hard. That's not a choice, mija. That's cruelty. But I broke the vase. It was worth $75,000. I destroyed Mr. Grimaldiro's property. It was an accident, a new voice said from the doorway. Emily's head snapped around. Nicholas Grimaldiro stood in the bathroom entrance, still wearing the dress shirt and slacks from earlier, but looking rumpled now. Exhausted. His dark hair was disheveled. His tie was gone. He had the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes so dark they were almost black. But right now those eyes were fixed on Emily with an intensity that made her want to hide under the water. Mr. Grimaldiro? Emily tried to cover herself better, even though the bubbles Maria had added to the bath hid everything. I'm so sorry about the vase. I'll pay for it, however long it takes. The vase is insured. Nicholas stepped into the bathroom. Luca quietly left, closing the door behind him. And even if it wasn't, it's still just an object. Objects can be replaced. You can't. Emily didn't know what to say to that. In her experience, things always mattered more than she did. How are you feeling? Nicholas asked. Fine, good. I should get out of your way. Emily started to stand up, then remembered she was mostly naked and dropped back down. Could you turn around? Maria stood up. I'll get you some clothes. Mr. Grimaldiro had me bring several options from storage since your uniform was ruined. She gave Nicholas a pointed look. You should wait outside. I'll wait in the bedroom. Nicholas didn't move for a moment, still looking at Emily like he was memorizing her face. We need to talk when you're ready. He left. Maria helped Emily out of the tub and wrapped her in the softest towel Emily had ever felt. Her reflection in the mirror was a disaster. Hair plastered to her skull, face pale except for 2 spots of fever-bright color on her cheeks, lips still faintly blue. I look like death, Emily muttered. You almost were death. Maria guided her to a stool and started gently drying her hair. Dios mío, when I saw you in that bed, I thought... Her voice cracked. I thought I'd lost you. Guilt twisted in Emily's stomach. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. You have nothing to apologize for. Ricardo does. Maria's hands shook slightly as she worked. I should have seen what kind of man he was. I knew he was strict, demanding, but I never thought he was capable of something like this. It wasn't your fault. And it wasn't yours either. Remember that when you talked to Mr. Grimaldiro? Maria pulled a thick robe from the closet, white cotton that was probably worth more than Emily's entire wardrobe. He's a good man, stern sometimes, demanding in his own way, but fair. He won't blame you for the vase. Emily wasn't so sure about that. In her experience, rich people always blamed the help for everything. She put on the robe and found underwear and soft pajamas laid out on the bed in the next room. The guest suite was bigger than her entire apartment. A fire crackled in the fireplace. Through the windows, she could see snow still falling, but lighter now. The blizzard was passing. Nicholas sat in one of the leather chairs by the fire, staring into the flames. He looked up when Emily emerged from the bathroom. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Please. Emily sat. The chair was absurdly comfortable. Her body sank into it like a hug. She pulled the robe tighter and waited for Nicholas to tell her she was fired. Instead, he said, I owe you an apology. Emily blinked. What? Richard Caldwell worked for me. I hired him. I gave him authority over my household staff. What he did to you happened under my roof, under my watch. Nicholas leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I should have seen the kind of man he was. I should have protected you better. I'm sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. I did. Nicholas's voice went hard. I ignored warning signs. Maria told me Richard was too harsh with the younger staff. Luca mentioned he seemed to enjoy intimidating people. I dismissed it as efficiency, as high standards. He shook his head. I was wrong, and you almost died because of it. Emily didn't know what to say. Rich people didn't apologize to her. They didn't take responsibility. They definitely didn't look at her with genuine remorse in their eyes. I'm going to be okay, she finally managed. Thanks to you. Maria said you saved my life. I barely made it in time. Something dark crossed Nicholas's face. Another 30 minutes, and Dr. Morrison says you would have been gone. The silence stretched. The fire popped. Outside, wind rattled the windows. I still have a job, right? Emily asked quietly. Maria said you told her I do, but I need to hear it from you, because I really, really need this job. You have a job. Nicholas said it like a promise. With a raise. And you're moving into staff quarters here at the mansion instead of commuting from town. That apartment you're renting has a broken heater and it's winter. You'll freeze. I can't afford to live here. Room and board are included. Standard for residential staff. Nicholas pulled out his phone and made a note. You'll have your own suite on the second floor, private bathroom, full kitchen access. Maria will help you move your things once the road's clear. Emily's throat went tight. Why are you being so nice to me? Nicholas looked up from his phone. For a long moment, he just studied her, and Emily had the uncomfortable feeling he could see straight through her, see every insecurity, every fear, every desperate, clawing need to prove she was worth something. Because you deserve it, he finally said, and because I don't want you to ever feel like you did tonight. Powerless, disposable, afraid. He stood up. Get some rest. Dr. Morrison will be here in the morning to check on you. Maria's sleeping in the chair outside your door in case you need anything. Mr. Grimaldiro, Nicholas. He said it firmly. You work for me, yes, but you're also under my protection now. That means something in this house. Call me Nicholas. He left before Emily could respond. She sat alone in the guest suite and tried to process what had just happened. She'd almost died. Richard was fired. Nicholas Grimaldiro, the most powerful man she'd ever met, had personally saved her life and was now offering her a place to live. It felt like a dream or a trap. Emily had learned a long time ago that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. Emily slept for 14 hours straight and woke up to Maria bringing her breakfast on a silver tray. Mr. Grimaldiro wants you to rest today, the older woman announced, setting the tray across Emily's lap. No work, no stress, just recovery. The breakfast was obscene. Fluffy scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, toast with real butter, orange juice that tasted like it had been squeezed that morning. Emily ate everything and felt human again for the first time since the vase shattered. Dr. Morrison arrived around noon. He was a severe-looking man in his 60s who poked and prodded Emily, asked 100 questions, and finally declared her remarkably lucky to be alive. Another hour in that cold and we'd be having a very different conversation, he said, packing up his medical bag. You have minor frostbite on 3 toes and 2 fingers. Keep them warm. No extreme temperature changes. The tissue damage should heal on its own. When can I go back to work? Emily asked. When Mr. Grimaldiro says you can, which won't be today. Dr. Morrison gave her a stern look. You went through a significant trauma. Your body needs time to recover. Rest, read, watch television. Let yourself heal. He left. Emily tried to rest, made it about 20 minutes before she was climbing the walls with boredom and anxiety. She wasn't good at sitting still, wasn't good at accepting help. Every minute she spent in this guest suite felt like she was taking advantage of Nicholas's generosity. So she got dressed in the clothes Maria had left, soft leggings and an oversized sweater that was definitely too expensive for her, and ventured out into the hallway. The mansion was quiet. Most of the staff were working in other wings. Emily made her way downstairs, intending to find Maria and convince her she was fine to help with something light. Instead, she found Nicholas in the study. The door was open. He sat behind a massive desk covered in papers and laptop computers, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian to someone who sounded angry. He looked up when Emily appeared in the doorway and held up one finger. Wait. Emily waited. She studied the room while Nicholas finished his call. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace big enough to roast a pig, windows overlooking the snow-covered grounds. The whole space screamed old money and power. That was my lawyer, Nicholas said, ending the call. Richard's attorney is threatening to countersue for wrongful termination and assault. Emily's stomach dropped. Because you grabbed him? Because I grabbed him. Nicholas didn't look concerned. His lawyer is an idiot. We have security footage of the entire incident with you. No jury in the world will side with him. What if they do? What if he wins and comes back here? He won't. Nicholas said it with absolute certainty. Even if criminal charges don't stick, I'm blackballing him from every household management position in the state. He'll be lucky to get a job managing a storage unit. Emily shifted her weight. That seems harsh. He tried to kill you. He tried to scare me. There's a difference. Nicholas stood up and came around the desk. He moved like a predator, controlled, purposeful, dangerous in a way that made Emily's hindbrain scream warnings even as the rest of her stayed rooted in place. There's no difference, he said quietly. Intent doesn't matter when the result is the same. Richard Caldwell put you in a situation where you could have died. Whether he meant for that to happen or just didn't care enough to prevent it, he's responsible, and he will face consequences. Emily wanted to argue, wanted to say Richard deserved a second chance, but the words stuck in her throat because Nicholas was right. Richard had thrown her outside and forgotten about her, had lied to Maria about sending her home, had shown zero remorse when Nicholas confronted him. He'd been willing to let her die over a vase. Okay, Emily said. What do you need me to do? For the police? For the lawyers? Tell the truth. Nicholas leaned against his desk. That's all. Just tell them exactly what happened. The truth makes me sound pathetic, like I just stood there and let him throw me outside. The truth makes you sound like someone in an impossible situation who made the best choice available. Nicholas studied her face. You're not pathetic, Emily. You're 19 years old working 2 jobs to put yourself through college. You age out of foster care with nothing and built a life anyway. That's not pathetic. That's remarkable. Heat crawled up Emily's neck. How do you know about the foster care thing? Maria mentioned it, and I have HR files on all my employees. That's not creepy at all. Nicholas almost smiled. I like to know who's working in my home. You have a 3.8 GPA at community college. You're studying business management. You've never been late to a shift, never called in sick, never caused problems. He paused. Until you destroyed a $75,000 vase. Emily flinched. I really am sorry about that. Don't be. I hated that vase. It was ugly and I only bought it because the auction house said I should. Nicholas pushed off the desk. Are you hungry? It's past lunch. Maria brought me breakfast. That was 7 hours ago. Nicholas was already heading for the door. Come on. I'll make you something. Emily followed him because she didn't know what else to do. Nicholas Grimaldiro was offering to make her food. This entire situation had gone completely off the rails. The kitchen was empty. The staff were taking their afternoon break. And Nicholas moved through it like he actually knew what he was doing. He pulled ingredients from the massive refrigerator and started assembling sandwiches with the kind of efficiency that suggested he'd done this before. You cook? Emily asked. I survive. There's a difference. Nicholas sliced tomatoes with a knife that looked sharp enough to perform surgery. I grew up in Brooklyn. My mother worked 2 jobs. If I wanted to eat, I learned to feed myself. Emily absorbed that information. It didn't fit with the image she had of Nicholas Grimaldiro, the wealthy crime boss who owned a mansion and wore suits that cost more than her car. You look surprised, Nicholas said. I just figured you were born rich. No. I was born poor and got rich later. He finished the sandwiches and slid one across the counter to Emily. The hard way. They ate in silence for a while. The sandwich was simple: turkey, cheese, lettuce, tomato. But it tasted better than anything Emily had eaten in weeks. Maybe because she was actually relaxed for the first time since the vase broke. Maybe because Nicholas's presence was weirdly comfortable despite the fact that he terrified her. Can I ask you something? Emily said. Why do you live alone in this giant house? Maria said you don't have family visiting. No girlfriend. Just you and the staff. Nicholas took a long time answering. I like my privacy, and most people who want to get close to me want something. Money, power, protection. It's exhausting. So you just stay alone? It's safer that way. Nicholas met her eyes. For everyone involved. There was a weight to those words Emily didn't understand. A warning maybe, or a confession. She decided not to push. They finished eating. Nicholas cleaned up the kitchen with the same efficiency he'd used making lunch. Emily watched him and tried to reconcile this man, barefoot in jeans and a t-shirt, washing dishes in his own sink, with the crime boss Maria had quietly warned her about. People are scared of you, Emily said. The staff. They don't talk about it, but I can tell. Nicholas didn't look up from the dishes. People should be scared of me. I've done things that would give you nightmares. Have you killed anyone? Yes. The answer was so matter-of-fact it took Emily a second to process. Oh. Does that bother you? Emily considered it. Thought about the foster father who'd locked her in a closet for 2 days when she was 12. The social worker who'd stolen her birthday money. The landlord who'd tried to pressure her into sex in exchange for rent. Sometimes the world was full of people who deserved what they got. Depends on who you killed, she finally said. Nicholas looked at her then. Really looked at her. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise maybe, or recognition. People who hurt the ones I protect. People who broke agreements they knew had consequences. People who didn't leave me another choice. Then no, Emily said. It doesn't bother me. The silence that followed was different, charged. Nicholas dried his hands on a towel and turned to face her fully. You're not what I expected, he said. What did you expect? Someone more afraid, more judgmental. He moved closer, not threatening, just present. You almost died in my house, and you're standing in my kitchen asking me about murder like we're discussing the weather. I almost died because of Richard, not because of you. Emily held her ground even though her heart was hammering. And I've met plenty of dangerous men who never killed anyone. Sometimes the scariest people are the ones who hurt you with a smile. Nicholas's jaw tightened. Richard. Among others. Emily shrugged. You're dangerous. I'm not stupid. But you're also the person who ran into a blizzard to save someone you barely know. That counts for something. For a long moment, Nicholas just stared at her. Then he did something Emily had never seen him do. He smiled. A real smile that reached his eyes and made him look 10 years younger. You're going to be trouble, he said. I can tell. I broke a $75,000 vase on my first week decorating. I'm already trouble. Nicholas laughed. An actual laugh that echoed through the kitchen and made something warm bloom in Emily's chest. Then his phone rang. The moment shattered. Nicholas checked the screen and his expression went cold and hard again. I have to take this. It's about Richard. Okay. Emily backed toward the door. I should go rest anyway. Dr. Morrison said, Emily? Nicholas stopped her with just her name. Thank you for being honest with me. Most people lie to my face because they're afraid of what I'll do if they don't. I'm too tired to lie, Emily admitted. And you saved my life. Least I can do is be straight with you. She left before Nicholas could respond, made her way back upstairs to the guest suite where Maria was waiting with clean clothes and a knowing look. You went to see him, the older woman said. We talked. That's all. Mija, be careful. Mr. Grimaldiero is a good man, but he's also a complicated man. His world is dangerous. I know. Do you? Maria's expression went serious. Men like him, they don't have normal relationships. Everyone close to them becomes a target, a weakness other people try to exploit. Emily thought about that. Are you a target? I'm old and I've been with him for 10 years. People know hurting me would start a war. Maria touched Emily's cheek gently. But you're young, pretty, new. If Mr. Grimaldiero starts to care about you, really care, there are people who will notice, people who will use that against him. He doesn't care about me. He just feels guilty about what happened with Richard. Maria gave her a look that said she didn't believe that for a second. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying. She left. Emily spent the rest of the afternoon trying to read a book from the suite's bookshelf and failing to focus on the words. Her mind kept drifting to Nicholas, to the way he'd smiled in the kitchen, to the warmth in his voice when he thanked her for being honest. Maria was right. This was dangerous territory. But for the first time in her life, Emily didn't want to be careful. She wanted to see where this led. 3 days after Christmas, the police came to take Emily's statement. 2 detectives, a man and a woman, both looking exhausted and skeptical, sat across from her in Nicholas's study while she recounted everything that happened the night of the vase. Nicholas sat beside her. Luca stood by the door. Maria hovered nearby with tea. No one was drinking. The female detective Rodriguez asked most of the questions. And Mr. Caldwell explicitly told you to wait outside? In the middle of a blizzard? Yes. Emily's hands were shaking. She clasped them in her lap. He said Mr. Grimaldiero would be back in 2 or 3 hours and I could explain myself about the vase. He said if I didn't want to wait outside, I could be fired immediately and escorted off the property. That's coercion, Rodriguez said, making notes. He gave you an impossible choice. I chose to wait. Because you were afraid of losing your job. Yes. The male detective Chen leaned forward. Did Mr. Caldwell ever physically harm you before that night? No, he just intimidated people. Made you feel small, like you were always one mistake away from being fired. And Mr. Grimaldiero? Chen glanced at Nicholas. Did he know about Mr. Caldwell's management style? I was aware Richard could be demanding, Nicholas said before Emily could answer. I was not aware he was abusive. If I had known, he would have been terminated immediately. Chen wrote that down. You assaulted Mr. Caldwell when you confronted him about the incident. I grabbed him by the throat and pushed him against a wall. Then I released him and told him to leave my property. That's hardly assault. Mr. Caldwell has photographs of bruising. Then he should have thought about that before he tried to murder my employee. Nicholas's voice went cold. Are we filing charges against Richard Caldwell, or are you here to arrest me? Rodriguez held up a hand. No one's arresting anyone right now. We're gathering information. Mr. Caldwell's attorney is claiming this was a misunderstanding that escalated due to weather conditions beyond anyone's control. Emily's stomach turned. That's not what happened. We know. We've reviewed the security footage from the front entrance. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. It's pretty clear Mr. Caldwell forced you outside and locked the door. The question is whether he intended to cause serious harm or was just being recklessly negligent. Does it matter? Emily asked. Either way, I almost died. For prosecution purposes, yes, intent matters. Attempted murder requires proof he wanted you dead. Reckless endangerment just requires proof he created a dangerous situation without caring about the consequences. He wanted to punish her, Nicholas said quietly, to teach her a lesson about respecting expensive property. He didn't think about whether she'd survive the experience because her life didn't matter to him as much as his authority. Rodriguez nodded slowly. That's consistent with what we're seeing. We'll be recommending charges for reckless endangerment, assault, and unlawful imprisonment. The DA will make the final call. Assault? Emily asked, grabbing your wrist hard enough to leave bruises. You mentioned that in your initial statement to the responding officers. Emily had forgotten about that. Her wrist had been bruised for days after. The detectives asked more questions, wanted to know about other staff members who might have witnessed Richard's behavior, asked about the vase and whether Emily had been properly trained on handling antiques, wanted a timeline of exactly when she went outside and when Nicholas found her. By the end, Emily's head was pounding. Rodriguez stood up and handed Emily a business card. If you remember anything else, call me. And if Mr. Caldwell or his attorney try to contact you, don't engage. Let us know immediately. He won't contact her, Nicholas said. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. The detectives left. Luca escorted them out. Emily sagged in her chair and pressed her hands against her eyes. That was awful, she muttered. It's over now. Nicholas's voice was gentle. You did well. I feel like I'm sending someone to prison. You're holding someone accountable for nearly killing you. That's different. Emily lowered her hands. Nicholas was watching her with that intense focus he had, like she was the only thing in the room that mattered. What if they don't press charges? She asked. What if his lawyer gets him off? Then I'll handle it another way. The words hung in the air. Emily knew what he meant, knew exactly what Nicholas Grimaldiro was capable of doing to people who crossed him. Don't, she said. Please, if the legal system doesn't work, just let it go. Don't do something you'll regret because of me. I won't regret it. I will. Emily stood up. I don't want you to become the kind of person who murders someone over me. I'm not worth that. Nicholas stood too, crossed the distance between them in 2 strides and caught her shoulders gently. You are worth that. You're worth more than that. And I need you to understand something, Emily. The kind of person who would murder someone over you? I already am that person. I was that person long before I met you. But I'm choosing not to because you asked me not to. That's the only reason. Emily's breath caught. This close, she could see the gold flecks in Nicholas's dark eyes, could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, could feel the heat radiating off his body. You scare me, she whispered. I know. Nicholas's hands tightened slightly on her shoulders. But you don't run. Why? Because you also saved my life. Because you're letting me live in your house and giving me a raise and treating me like I matter. Because... She stopped herself. Because what? Because when you look at me, I don't feel invisible anymore. Nicholas made a sound low in his throat, something between a growl and a sigh. His hand slid from her shoulders to her face, cupping her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. You were never invisible, he said. I noticed you the first day you started working here. I noticed how hard you worked, how you never complained, how you made Maria smile more than she had in years. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. I noticed everything about you, Emily Turner, and that terrifies me more than anything else in my life. Emily's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could feel it. Why? Because people I care about become targets. Because my enemies will use you against me if they realize you matter. Because I have spent 10 years building walls to keep everyone at a distance, and you walked right through them without even trying. So what do we do? Nicholas's expression was tortured. The smart thing would be to send you away, give you a reference, help you find another job somewhere safe. I don't want another job. I know. That's the problem. Nicholas dropped his hands and stepped back, putting distance between them. I can't promise you safe, Emily. I can't promise you normal. All I can promise is that anyone who tries to hurt you will regret it for the rest of their very short life. That's dark. That's reality. Nicholas turned away. Go rest. We'll talk more later. Emily left because she didn't know what else to do. Her whole body was shaking. Her mind was spinning. Nicholas Grimaldiro had just admitted he cared about her, had touched her face like she was something precious, had looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. And Emily had no idea what to do with that information. The walls started closing in 4 days later. Emily was eating breakfast in the staff dining room with Maria and 2 of the kitchen workers when Luca appeared in the doorway, looking grim. Meeting. Now. Security office. He looked at Emily specifically. You too. Maria's face went pale. What happened? Just come. They followed Luca through the mansion to the security office on the first floor, a room Emily had never been allowed into before. It was full of monitors showing every corner of the estate. Nicholas stood in the center, studying one screen with an expression like murder. Lock it down, he said without looking up. Full perimeter, no one in or out without my explicit permission. Boss, what's going on? Luca asked. Nicholas finally turned around. His eyes found Emily immediately. Richard Caldwell escaped police custody 3 hours ago during a transport to county jail. He's in the wind. Emily's blood turned to ice. Escaped? Overpowered a guard, stole his weapon, disappeared into the city. Nicholas's jaw was tight. The police think he's running, getting as far from New York as possible before they catch him. And you don't think that, Luca said. No, I think he's coming here. Nicholas pointed at the screen. 2 hours ago, someone tried to access our security system remotely. They failed because we upgraded the encryption last month. But they tried. You think it was Richard? I know it was Richard. The IP address traced back to a library computer in Yonkers, 30 miles from here. Nicholas looked at Emily again. He's not running. He's planning something, and you're the target. The room spun. Emily grabbed the edge of a desk to steady herself. Why me? I didn't do anything to him. I didn't even want to press charges. You're the reason he lost everything. His job, his reputation, his freedom. Nicholas crossed to her. In his mind, you're responsible for his downfall, not me. You. That's insane. That's revenge. Nicholas looked at Luca. I want every entrance sealed. Guards on rotation 24/7. Motion sensors on the perimeter. If a squirrel crosses the property line, I want to know about it. Done. What about Emily? She doesn't leave the main house, doesn't go near windows, doesn't answer doors. Nicholas turned back to Emily. You stay where I can see you. Understood? Emily wanted to argue, wanted to say she wasn't a prisoner, but the look in Nicholas's eyes stopped her. He was terrified, not for himself, for her. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay inside. Good. Nicholas started giving orders to Luca, technical security things Emily didn't understand. Maria pulled Emily aside. This is bad, mija, the older woman said quietly. Ricardo is not a stable man. If he's fixated on you, I know. Emily's hands were shaking again. What do I do? You trust Mr. Grimaldiro to protect you, and you don't take any chances. Maria squeezed her shoulders. This will pass. The police will find Ricardo. Everything will go back to normal. But Emily didn't believe that. Nothing was ever going back to normal. The mansion became a fortress overnight. New locks appeared on every door. Cameras multiplied in the hallways. Men Emily had never seen before took up positions around the property, serious men in dark suits with weapons barely concealed under their jackets. Nicholas's people. Not staff. Soldiers. Emily tried to keep working, tried to maintain some sense of routine, but it was impossible to focus when armed guards followed her everywhere, and Nicholas himself showed up outside whatever room she was in every 30 minutes, like he was checking to make sure she still existed. On the 3rd day of lockdown, Emily finally snapped. She found Nicholas in his study and closed the door behind her. We need to talk, she said. Nicholas looked up from his laptop. About? About this. Emily gestured at the closed door. About the guards. About you checking on me every 5 seconds like I'm going to disappear. About the fact that I haven't been outside in 3 days and I'm starting to lose my mind. Richard is still out there. Richard is probably in Canada by now, or Mexico, or anywhere except here. Emily knew she was being irrational, but couldn't stop. The police said most escaped prisoners run as far and fast as they can. He's not stupid enough to come back here where you have an army waiting for him. You don't know what he's capable of. Neither do you. You're assuming the worst and turning this place into a prison because you're scared. Emily stopped herself. You're scared of losing me. Nicholas stood up slowly. Yes, I am. The admission hung between them. Why? Emily asked. I'm nobody. I'm just a maid who worked here for 4 months. Why do you care this much? Because you matter to me. Nicholas came around the desk. Because somewhere between you breaking that vase and you calling me out for being scared, you became the most important person in my life. And I don't know how to handle that. Emily's throat went tight. That's crazy. You barely know me. I know you better than you think. Nicholas stopped a foot away, close enough to touch, but not touching. I know you're terrified of being abandoned because everyone in your life has left you. I know you work yourself to exhaustion because you're afraid if you stop, you'll realize you're alone. I know you don't believe you deserve good things because the world has spent 19 years teaching you that you don't. Tears burned in Emily's eyes. Stop. I know you're brave and stubborn and smart and so goddamn beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. Nicholas's voice dropped. And I know that if Richard Caldwell gets anywhere near you, I will burn down the entire world to make sure he regrets it. You can't. I can. I will. Nicholas closed the remaining distance and framed her face with his hands. I told you I was dangerous, Emily. I told you people I care about become targets. This is what I meant. This is the life you're choosing if you stay here, if you stay with me. I'm not choosing anything, Emily whispered. I'm just trying to survive. Then survive with me. Let me protect you. Let me keep you safe. And what happens when Richard is caught? What happens when the danger passes? I don't know. Nicholas's thumbs traced patterns on her cheekbones. But I know I don't want you to leave. I know I wake up every morning hoping you'll bring me coffee. I know I look for you in every room I walk into. I know that for the first time in 10 years, this house feels like a home instead of a tomb. And that's because of you. Emily's defenses crumbled. She'd spent her whole life building walls to keep people out, to protect herself from getting hurt when they inevitably left. But Nicholas was right. She'd walked through his walls without trying, and he'd done the same to hers. This is a bad idea, she said. Terrible idea. We're going to regret this. Probably. Nicholas leaned closer. Do you want me to stop? Emily looked at his mouth, at the question in his eyes, at the vulnerability he was showing her despite the fact that it terrified him as much as it terrified her. No, she breathed. I really don't. Nicholas kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce and full of all the fear and need they'd both been holding back. Emily's hands fisted in his shirt. Nicholas's arms came around her waist and pulled her flush against him. The kiss deepened. Emily made a sound she'd never made before, something between a gasp and a moan. Then gunfire shattered the windows behind them. Glass exploded inward. Nicholas grabbed Emily and threw them both to the floor as bullets ripped through the study. The desk splintered. Books exploded off shelves. The lights went out. Emily couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Nicholas covered her body with his and shouted something she couldn't hear over the ringing in her ears. More gunfire, shouting, running footsteps. The attack lasted maybe 30 seconds, maybe forever. Emily couldn't tell. When silence finally fell, Nicholas lifted his head and looked at her. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eyebrow. Are you hurt? He demanded. Emily shook her head, couldn't speak. Luca burst through the door, weapon drawn. Boss, they're retreating. 3 vehicles, we got one of them. Lock it down, now. Nicholas pulled Emily to her feet and checked her over with hands that shook. You're sure you're not hit? I'm sure. Emily's voice sounded far away. What just happened? Nicholas's expression turned murderous. Richard just declared war. The basement safe room smelled like concrete and fear. Emily sat on a metal bench bolted to the wall while Nicholas paced like a caged animal. Blood had dried on his face from the cut above his eyebrow. His shirt was torn. Glass glittered in his dark hair. Above them, footsteps thundered through the mansion as Luca's men secured the perimeter and searched for any attackers who might have stayed behind. Emily's hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Drink this!" Nicholas pressed a bottle of water into her trembling fingers. "You're in shock." Emily tried to open it, couldn't grip the cap. Nicholas took it back, opened it, and handed it to her again. She drank without tasting anything. "How did they get past security?" Her voice sounded hollow, distant. "You had guards, cameras, motion sensors. They knew where the blind spots were." Nicholas's jaw was tight enough to crack teeth, which means Richard had help. Someone who knows this estate's security layout intimately. Who? "I don't know yet, but I will." Nicholas crouched in front of her so they were eye level. "Emily, look at me." She did. His dark eyes were furious but also terrified in a way she'd never seen before. "I need you to understand what just happened," he said carefully. "That wasn't a warning. That wasn't meant to scare us. Those men were trying to kill me and kidnap you. If we'd been standing 3 feet to the left when that window shattered, we'd both be dead." Emily's stomach lurched. She set down the water bottle before she dropped it. "Why kidnap me?" "Because you're leverage. Because Richard knows the fastest way to destroy me is to take the one person I—" Nicholas stopped himself, stood up, started pacing again. "He knows I care about you. He's going to use that. So send me away." The words came out flat, practical. "Put me on a plane to California or Florida or anywhere that's not here. Problem solved." "That's not solving the problem. That's running from it." "Then let me run." Emily stood up too fast. The room spun. "You said it yourself. People you care about become targets." "Fine. Stop caring. Send me somewhere safe and forget about me." Nicholas turned on her. "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because I'm already in too deep." The confession exploded out of him. "Because the moment I carried you out of that blizzard, I stopped being able to think rationally about your safety. Because when those bullets came through that window, my first thought wasn't protecting myself or taking cover. It was making sure nothing touched you. Do you understand what that means, Emily? In my world, hesitation gets you killed. Caring about someone more than yourself gets you killed. And I don't care. I would take a bullet for you without thinking twice, and that terrifies me more than anything Richard Caldwell could ever do." Emily stared at him. "You're insane." "I know. We kissed once. Once. And you're ready to die for me?" "I was ready to die for you before we kissed." Nicholas dragged a hand through his hair, scattering more glass. "I've been ready since the moment I found you half frozen in the snow and realized my entire world would be darker without you in it." The safe room door opened. Luca appeared, his expression grim. "Boss, we need to talk." "Not now." "Now." Luca's eyes flicked to Emily. "It's about the attack. You need to see this." Nicholas looked like he wanted to argue. Then he turned to Emily. "Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone except me or Luca. Understood?" "Nicholas, promise me." "I promise." He left with Luca. The heavy door sealed shut behind them with a sound like a tomb closing. Emily was alone in the concrete box with nothing but her thoughts and the memory of gunfire and Nicholas's body covering hers. She sat back down on the bench and tried not to fall apart. Upstairs, Nicholas followed Luca through the wreckage of his study. The windows were completely blown out. Wind and snow poured through the openings. Bullet holes cratered the walls. His desk looked like it had been through a war. "Talk," Nicholas said. Luca pulled up security footage on a tablet. The attack came from 3 positions simultaneously: East Lawn, South Garden, and the access road. 9 shooters total. They knew exactly where to position themselves for maximum coverage of the study. Inside information. Has to be. But here's where it gets interesting. Luca swiped to different footage. "We got one of their vehicles before it left the property. The driver's dead. Caught 3 rounds from Martinez. But we ID'd him." He held up a photo. Nicholas studied the face. Young, maybe 25, tattoos on his neck. He didn't recognize him. "Who is he?" "Carlo Rossi, low-level enforcer for the Bianchi family. Nicholas's blood went cold. Bianchi. Alessandro Bianchi ran one of the 5 major crime families in New York. His territory was mostly in Queens and parts of Brooklyn. He and Nicholas had an understanding. They stayed out of each other's way, honored the old agreements, didn't start wars that would bring federal attention down on everyone. If Bianchi had broken that understanding, there would be consequences. "Are we sure?" Nicholas asked. "Could be a freelancer using Bianchi's name. Martinez found this in the vehicle." Luca handed him a burner phone. Text messages between the driver and someone named A. Instructions for the attack, timing, positions, everything. Nicholas scrolled through the messages. They were careful. No names, no specifics. But the last one made his stomach drop. "The girl is the priority. Grimaldiro is secondary. Bring her alive." "He put a bounty on Emily," Nicholas said quietly. "Looks like it. And before you ask, yes, I've already reached out to our contacts in the Bianchi organization. No one's talking. They've either been told to shut up or they genuinely don't know what Alessandro is planning." Nicholas handed back the phone. His mind was already running through options. Alessandro Bianchi wasn't stupid. He wouldn't authorize an attack on Nicholas's home without serious motivation, which meant someone had offered him something valuable enough to risk a war. "Richard," Nicholas said, "he went to Bianchi with information about this estate. Security layouts, blind spots, staff schedules, offered it all in exchange for help getting to Emily." "That's my read too." Luca's expression was dark. "Question is, what did Richard promise Bianchi in return? Because Alessandro doesn't do favors. He makes deals." Nicholas thought about that. Richard Caldwell was a house manager. He had no money, no power, no resources that would interest someone like Alessandro Bianchi, unless he'd offered something else. "He promised him access to me," Nicholas said slowly. "Think about it. Alessandro has wanted to expand into my territory for years. I've blocked him at every turn. But if Richard delivers Emily and uses her as bait to draw me out, Bianchi gets a shot at taking you down and claiming your operations." Luca cursed. "That's bold. That's also suicide. The other families would never allow it." "Not if he makes it look like I started the war." Nicholas pulled out his phone. "Richard attacks Emily. I retaliate against the people who helped him. Alessandro responds to my aggression by defending himself. Suddenly, I'm the aggressor violating the peace accords, and the other families have grounds to let Bianchi eliminate me. That's too complicated, too many moving parts." It's exactly the kind of play Alessandro would make. Nicholas started dialing. He's always been smarter than people give him credit for. Patience, long-term planning, using proxies to do his dirty work. The call connected. A man's voice answered. "Grimaldiro, I was wondering when you'd call." "Alessandro." Nicholas kept his voice calm, controlled. "We need to talk about the attack on my home tonight." "What attack?" "Don't insult me. I have one of your men in my morgue and text messages from your phone authorizing a hit on my estate." Silence. Then Alessandro Bianchi laughed, a sound like broken glass. "You have a burner phone with messages from someone calling themselves A. That's not exactly proof." "It's enough for me." "Is it enough for the council?" Alessandro's voice sharpened. "Because if you're accusing me of violating territorial agreements, you'd better have more than a dead freelancer and some text messages. You'd better have ironclad evidence. Otherwise, this conversation gets very ugly very fast." Nicholas gripped the phone hard enough to crack the case. Alessandro was right. Without concrete proof, any move Nicholas made against the Bianchi family would look like unprovoked aggression. The Council of Families would side with Alessandro, and Nicholas would be the one facing consequences. "Here's what I think happened," Alessandro continued. "I think your fired employee, this Richard Caldwell, is running around making deals and using my name to add legitimacy. I think he hired some freelancers who happen to have worked for my organization in the past. And I think you're looking for someone to blame because your security is so shit that a civilian managed to mount an attack on your fortress. Careful, Alessandro. Or what? You'll start a war you can't win?" Alessandro's tone turned mocking. "We both know you're spread too thin right now. Your operations in Chicago are barely holding. Your Brooklyn territory is under pressure from the Russians. You can't afford to fight me and them at the same time." He was right. Nicholas had overextended in the past year. Too many deals, too many alliances. His organization was powerful but also fragile in places he couldn't afford to show weakness. "What do you want?" Nicholas asked. "Nothing. I'm just pointing out reality." Alessandro paused. "But if I were you, I'd be more worried about the girl. Word is Richard Caldwell has a very specific plan for her, and it doesn't end well." The line went dead. Nicholas stood in the ruins of his study and felt the walls closing in. Alessandro was involved. He had to be. But proving it would require resources and time Nicholas didn't have, and while he was focused on Bianchi, Richard was out there planning something worse. "Boss?" Luca was watching him carefully. "What do you want to do?" Nicholas looked at the bullet holes in his walls, at the blood staining his floor, at the shattered glass that could have killed Emily if they'd been standing in slightly different positions. "We're moving her," he said. "Tonight. I have a safe house in the Adirondacks, off-grid, secure. Richard can't get to her there." "And you?" "I'm staying here." Nicholas started walking toward the door. "Alessandro wants a war? I'll give him one, but Emily's not going to be anywhere near it when it starts." Emily knew something was wrong the moment Nicholas came back to the safe room. His expression was too controlled, too careful, the same mask he wore when he was about to do something that would hurt. "Pack your things," he said. "You're leaving in an hour." Emily's heart stopped. "What?" "I have a safe house upstate, remote, secure. You'll be safe there while I handle Richard and whoever's helping him." "No." Emily stood up. "No, I'm not leaving. This isn't a discussion." "You're right, it's not, because I'm not going." Emily crossed her arms. "You think sending me away is going to protect me? It's just going to make me an easier target. At least here I have you and Luca and an army of guards. Out there I'm alone." "You won't be alone. I'm sending 6 of my best men with you, former Special Forces. They'll keep you safe." "For how long? A week? A month? A year?" Emily's voice cracked. "How long am I supposed to hide while you fight a war that's happening because of me?" "This war is happening because Richard Caldwell is a psychopath and Alessandro Bianchi is an opportunist. You're just the excuse they're using." Nicholas moved closer. "Emily, I can't protect you here. Not anymore. Richard knows this place too well. He'll find another way in. And next time I might not be fast enough. So we leave together, both of us, right now." "I can't. Why not?" "Because running makes me look weak." The words exploded out of Nicholas. "Because the moment I abandon my territory, every other family in New York will see it as permission to carve up my operations. Because I've spent 10 years building something that matters, and I will not let Richard Caldwell and Alessandro Bianchi take it from me." Emily flinched. "So your empire matters more than I do?" "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you said." Emily felt tears burning but refused to let them fall. "You just told me you'd take a bullet for me, but you won't leave this house because it might make you look weak." "Which one is it, Nicholas? Do I matter or don't I?" "You know you matter. Then prove it. Come with me, right now. We disappear together and let Richard and Alessandro fight over an empty mansion." Nicholas looked at her like she'd suggested he cut off his own arm. "I can't do that." "You mean you won't?" "Emily, no, I get it." Emily grabbed her coat from where it hung on a hook. "You built an empire. You have responsibilities. People depend on you. I'm just the girl who broke a vase and somehow ended up in the middle of your world. I don't get to ask you to choose me over everything else you've built." "That's not fair." "Fair?" Emily laughed. It came out bitter and broken. "You want to talk about fair? I almost died in a blizzard because your house manager was a sadist. I got shot at in your study because your enemies want to use me as bait, and now you want to ship me off to some cabin in the woods while you stay here and play Mafia boss." "None of this is fair, Nicholas, but at least have the guts to admit you're choosing your reputation over my safety." The words landed like physical blows. Nicholas's face went white, then red, then cold and hard in a way Emily had never seen before. "Get your things," he said quietly. "You leave in 45 minutes." He walked out without looking back. Emily stood alone in the safe room and tried to breathe through the pain crushing her chest. She'd pushed too hard, said things she couldn't take back. But the truth was worse than the anger. Nicholas was sending her away, and she was going to let him. But The SUV was waiting in the underground garage when Emily came upstairs with a small bag of clothes Maria had helped her pack. 6 men in tactical gear stood around the vehicle. Nicholas's soldiers, faces hard and professional. Luca was giving them final instructions. Maria hugged Emily so tight her ribs ached. "You come back to me. You understand? You stay safe, and you come back." "I will." Emily's throat was too tight to say more. Nicholas appeared from the stairwell. He'd changed into clean clothes and washed the blood off his face. The cut above his eyebrow had been butterfly bandaged. He looked composed, controlled, nothing like the man who'd kissed her in the study before the world exploded. "The drive is 6 hours," he said. Not to Emily, to the head security guard. "You stop for nothing. If anyone follows you, you call me immediately and go to ground at the backup location. Clear?" "Clear, boss." Nicholas finally looked at Emily. His expression was unreadable. "There's a satellite phone at the safe house. Encrypted line. You can call me any time." Emily nodded, didn't trust herself to speak. "I'll come get you as soon as it's safe." Nicholas's jaw tightened. "I promise." "Don't make promises you can't keep." The words came out colder than Emily intended. Something flickered in Nicholas's eyes, hurt, maybe, or regret, but it disappeared before she could identify it. He stepped back, gestured to the vehicle. "You should go. Weather's getting worse." Emily climbed into the back seat. One guard got in beside her. Another took the driver's seat. The rest loaded into a second vehicle behind them. Through the tinted window, Emily watched Nicholas standing in the garage with Luca and Maria. He didn't wave, didn't move, just watched her leave with an expression carved from stone. The SUV pulled out of the garage and into the night. Emily made it exactly 3 miles before she started crying. The safe house was everything Nicholas had promised. Remote, secure, completely isolated. It sat at the end of an unmarked road 30 miles from the nearest town, surrounded by forest and mountains and nothing else. The building itself was more fortress than house. Reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, a generator for power, and enough supplies to survive a siege for months. Emily hated it on sight. The guards did a full sweep of the perimeter and interior before declaring it safe. Then they established a rotation, 2 on patrol outside, 2 monitoring security feeds inside, 2 resting. Emily got the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. It had a bed, a bathroom, and a window that looked out at endless trees. She sat on the bed and stared at the satellite phone Nicholas had sent with her. She should call him, tell him she arrived safely, maybe apologize for what she'd said in the safe room. Instead, she threw the phone across the room and buried her face in her hands. 3 days ago, she'd been kissing Nicholas in his study, feeling safe for the first time in her life, believing maybe she'd finally found somewhere she belonged. Now she was alone in a cabin in the woods while the man she'd stupidly fallen for prepared to go to war. A knock on the door interrupted her spiral. One of the guards, Martinez, she thought his name was, stood in the hallway. "You should eat something," he said. "We've got MREs and some canned food. Not great, but it'll keep you going." "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. Boss's orders." Emily wanted to tell Martinez what he could do with the boss's orders, but the guard looked exhausted and she didn't have the energy to fight. She followed him downstairs to the kitchen where someone had laid out military rations and bottled water. Emily forced herself to eat something that tasted like cardboard and regret. The other guards moved through the house like ghosts, efficient, professional, completely uninterested in making conversation. Emily went back upstairs after dinner and tried to sleep. Couldn't. Her mind kept replaying the attack. The sound of glass shattering, Nicholas covering her body with his, the fear in his eyes when he'd told her she had to leave. Around midnight, the satellite phone rang. Emily stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Hello?" "It's me." Nicholas's voice sounded far away, tired. "Did you make it safely?" "Yes." "Good." "That's good?" Silence. "How's the safe house?" "It's fine." More silence. Emily could hear wind on Nicholas's end of the line. He was outside somewhere. "I'm sorry," he finally said, "for sending you away. For everything I said in the safe room. You were right. About all of it." Emily's throat went tight. "Nicholas, Let me finish, please. He took a breath. I built my empire because I was terrified of being powerless again, of being that kid in Brooklyn who couldn't protect his mother or himself. Every deal I made, every alliance I formed, every enemy I destroyed, it was all about control, about making sure I'd never be vulnerable again. I understand, but then you showed up and destroyed all of it. Nicholas's voice cracked slightly. You made me feel things I'd buried for years, made me care about someone more than I cared about staying safe. And when those bullets came through that window, I realized something. My empire doesn't mean anything if you're not in it. This house is just a building. My reputation is just words. But you... He stopped. You're real. And I almost lost you because I was too afraid to choose you over everything else I've built. Tears were streaming down Emily's face now. What are you saying? I'm saying I made the wrong call. I should have left with you, should have put you first instead of my pride. Nicholas's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I'm saying I love you, Emily Turner, and as soon as I end this war, I'm coming to get you, and I'm never letting you go again. Emily couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The words she'd wanted to hear but never thought she'd actually get. Say something, Nicholas said. Please. I love you too. The confession poured out of her. I love you, and I'm terrified, and I don't know how to do this. We'll figure it out together. I promise. You said not to make promises you can't keep. This one I can keep. Nicholas sounded more certain than Emily had ever heard him. I'm ending this. Richard, Alessandro, all of it. And then I'm bringing you home. They talked for another hour. About nothing. About everything. About the future they might have if they both survived the present. When they finally hung up, Emily felt lighter than she had in days. She should have known it wouldn't last. The attack came at dawn. Emily woke to gunfire and shouting. She rolled out of bed and hit the floor as her bedroom window exploded inward. Glass rained down. Someone was screaming downstairs. Martinez burst through her door, weapon drawn. Stay down! We've got multiple hostiles breaching the perimeter. His head snapped back. Blood sprayed across the wall. He collapsed. Emily screamed. More gunfire. Closer now. The other guards were fighting back, but they were outnumbered. Emily could hear boots pounding up the stairs. She scrambled backward into the bathroom and locked the door. Her hand shook so badly she could barely turn the deadbolt. The satellite phone was still downstairs. She had no way to call for help. Someone kicked the bedroom door open. Footsteps. Coming closer. Emily Turner. The voice was familiar. Wrong. Come out. This will be easier if you cooperate. Richard. Richard Caldwell was here. In the safe house that was supposed to be secret, secure. How did you find me? Emily's voice came out high and thin. I've known where you were since the moment you left the mansion. Richard sounded pleased with himself. Did you really think Nicholas Grimaldiro was the only one with connections? I've been planning this for weeks, sweetheart. Every move, every contingency. You were never safe. He kicked the bathroom door. It shuddered, but held. Here's what's going to happen, Richard continued. You're going to open this door and come with me quietly. If you do, I might let some of Nicholas's men live. If you don't, I'm going to kill every single person in this house and drag you out by your hair. Your choice. Emily looked around the bathroom for a weapon, found nothing but towels and toiletries. The window was too small to climb through. She was trapped. 10 seconds, Richard said. 9, 8. Emily's mind raced. If she gave herself up, Richard won. If she fought, she died. Either way, Nicholas would blame himself. Would tear the world apart trying to find her, unless she could warn him first. Okay, Emily shouted. Okay, I'm coming out. Just don't hurt anyone else. Smart girl. Emily took a breath, said a prayer to no one in particular. Then she unlocked the bathroom door and stepped out. Richard Caldwell stood in the bedroom doorway, flanked by 4 armed men. He looked different than she remembered. Thinner, harder, with something feral in his eyes that made her stomach turn. He smiled when he saw her. There you are. He crossed the room and grabbed her arm. Let's go. We have an appointment to keep. Where are you taking me? Somewhere your boyfriend will come running to save you. Richard's grip tightened until Emily gasped in pain. And when he does, Alessandro Bianchi is going to be waiting with a bullet that has Nicholas Grimaldiro's name on it. Emily's blood went cold. This is a trap. Obviously, you're the bait. Richard dragged her toward the stairs. Nicholas thinks he's so smart, so careful, but he has one fatal weakness, you. And now that weakness is going to destroy him. They hauled Emily downstairs and out into the snow. 3 of Nicholas's guards were dead. The other 3 were zip-tied and kneeling in the snow, bleeding. Richard shoved Emily toward a waiting vehicle. Get in! Emily got in because there was no other choice. Richard climbed in beside her. The door slammed shut. The vehicle pulled away from the safe house, leaving death and wreckage behind. Through the window, Emily watched the forest disappear, watched her last chance of escape vanish into the trees. Richard had won, and Nicholas was walking straight into a trap that would kill him. Emily closed her eyes and tried not to scream. Nicholas got the call 4 hours later. He was in a meeting with his Brooklyn lieutenants when Luca burst through the door, phone in hand, face ashen. "Boss, we have a problem." Nicholas knew, before Luca said another word, before he heard the details. He knew. Emily. The safe house was hit at dawn. 6 guards dead, 3 wounded. Emily's gone. Luca's voice was hollow. And we just received this. He held up his phone. A video was playing. Emily, zip-tied to a chair in a concrete room, bruised but alive. Richard Caldwell, standing behind her with a gun to her head. "Hello, Nicholas." Richard's smile was pure madness. "I have something that belongs to you. If you want her back alive, you'll come to the old Bianchi warehouse on the Hudson waterfront, Pier 47, tonight at midnight. Come alone. No guards, no weapons, no backup. Just you." "Nicholas, don't," Emily started. Richard hit her across the face. Emily's head snapped to the side. Blood trickled from her split lip. Something inside Nicholas shattered. "Midnight," Richard repeated. "Or I start sending you pieces of her." The video ended. The room was silent. Every man in it was staring at Nicholas, waiting for orders, waiting for the explosion. Nicholas stood up slowly, walked to the window, looked out at the city he'd bled to control. "It's a trap," Luca said quietly. "Alessandro will have 50 men in that warehouse. You walk in alone, and you're dead." "I know." "So we don't go. We hit Bianchi's operation, take out his lieutenants, force him to hand over Richard and Emily. That could take days. Richard will kill her long before we get to them." Nicholas turned around. "I'm going to the warehouse." "Boss, I'm going. Alone." Exactly like Richard demanded. Nicholas's voice was perfectly calm, perfectly controlled. "And then I'm going to kill everyone in that building. You can't win a 50-on-1 fight. I'm not trying to win." Nicholas met Luca's eyes. "I'm buying time for you to get Emily out while Richard and Alessandro are focused on me." Understanding dawned on Luca's face. "You're using yourself as a distraction. Call it a diversion. Call it a sacrifice. I don't care." Nicholas started issuing orders. "You take 20 men, position them around the warehouse. When I go inside, you wait for Richard to make his move on me. The moment he's distracted, you breach from the south side where Emily's most likely being held, and you get her out. You don't wait for me. You don't try to help me. You grab Emily, and you run." "And you?" Nicholas pulled out his gun, checked the magazine. "I keep Richard and Alessandro busy as long as possible." "That's suicide." "That's love." Nicholas looked at every man in the room. "Anyone have a problem with this plan?" Silence. "Good. We leave in 2 hours. Get ready." Nicholas started for the door. "Boss?" Luca's voice stopped him. "If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, what do you want us to tell Emily?" Nicholas thought about that. About the girl who'd walked into his life and destroyed every wall he'd built, who'd made him feel human again, who he loved more than his own life. "Tell her I kept my promise," he said. "Tell her I never let her go." He left before anyone could argue. Midnight was 6 hours away, and Nicholas Grimaldiro was walking into hell to save the only person who'd ever made him want to live. The Bianchi warehouse squatted on the Hudson waterfront like a cancer, rusted metal, broken windows, decades of criminal enterprise soaked into every beam and bolt. Nicholas sat in the back of the SUV 3 blocks away and watched the clock tick toward midnight. 11:47. 13 minutes until he walked into a building designed to kill him. Luca appeared at the passenger window. Teams are in position. South side entry point is clear. We've got eyes on at least 30 hostiles inside, probably more in the back rooms. No visual on Emily yet. Nicholas nodded. He'd already stripped down to basics. Dark jeans, black t-shirt, tactical boots, no body armor. Richard would check for it, and Nicholas needed to appear vulnerable, compliant. Exactly the kind of desperate man who'd trade his life for a woman, which was exactly what he was. "When I go in, you wait for my signal," Nicholas said. "I'll get Richard talking. Draw as many of them toward me as possible. That's when you breach and find Emily." "What's the signal?" "You'll know it when you hear it." Nicholas pulled out his gun, a Glock 19, fully loaded, and tucked it into the back of his waistband. Then he pulled his shirt over it. "If something goes wrong and you can't get to Emily, you fall back. You don't trade lives. You come back with a bigger team and you flatten this entire building. Understood?" "Boss?" "Say you understand, Luca." Luca's jaw tightened. "I understand." "Good." Nicholas opened the door. "See you on the other side." He didn't wait for a response. He stepped out into the freezing night air and started walking toward the warehouse. The Hudson River churned to his right, black and infinite. Pier 47 jutted into the water like a skeletal finger. The warehouse sat at the end, lit from within by harsh industrial lights. 11:52. Nicholas's heart was beating too fast. He forced himself to breathe slowly. Controlled. This wasn't the first time he'd walked into a trap. Wouldn't be the last. But it was the first time the stakes had ever been someone he loved, instead of just territory or money or pride. That changed everything. The warehouse had a single entrance, a massive rolling door pulled halfway open. 2 men stood guard outside, weapons visible. They straightened when they saw Nicholas approaching alone. "Arms up!" one of them barked. Nicholas raised his hands. The guard patted him down thoroughly, found the Glock immediately, and yanked it from his waistband. "Anything else?" "No." "He's clean," the guard called over his shoulder. Then to Nicholas, "Inside. Walk straight. Don't turn around. Don't try anything stupid." Nicholas walked through the opening into hell. The warehouse interior was vast and gutted. Support columns marched in rows toward the back. Old machinery rusted in corners, and everywhere were Bianchi's soldiers. They lined the walls, stood on the catwalk overhead, blocked every exit. Nicholas counted 43 visible hostiles and assumed at least a dozen more hidden in the shadows. 55-1. Even for him, those were bad odds. In the center of the space, Richard Caldwell stood beside a support column. Emily was zip-tied to a chair next to him, her face bruised and swollen. She looked up when Nicholas entered, and something broke in her expression. "Nicholas, no," she started. Richard backhanded her. "Quiet." White-hot rage exploded through Nicholas's chest. Every instinct screamed at him to charge forward and rip Richard's throat out with his bare hands. He stayed frozen in place through sheer force of will. "Let her go," Nicholas said. His voice echoed through the warehouse. "I'm here. You have what you wanted. Release her." "Oh, I don't think so." Richard smiled. "See? Emily is my insurance policy. As long as I have her, you behave. The moment she's free, you become unpredictable. And we can't have that." "We?" Nicholas looked around. "Where's Alessandro? This is his operation, his warehouse, his men. But I don't see him anywhere. Mr. Bianchi is watching from a safe distance." Richard gestured vaguely toward the catwalk. "He's not stupid enough to stand in the same room as Nicholas Grimaldiro, even a trapped, unarmed Nicholas Grimaldiro. Smart man. He is. Which is why this partnership has been so productive." Richard circled around Emily's chair. "Did you know Alessandro has wanted you dead for 3 years? Ever since you blocked his expansion into Manhattan. But he could never find an opening. You were too careful, too protected, too ruthless. And you gave him the opening. I gave him everything." Richard's eyes glittered with malice. "Security layouts, staff schedules, your routines, your weaknesses, All the little secrets I learned managing your precious mansion for 5 years. Alessandro was very grateful. Nicholas kept his expression neutral, kept Richard talking. Every second bought Luca more time to position his team. What did he promise you in return? Money, safety, a new identity far from here. Richard shrugged. And revenge. Don't forget revenge. Against me? Against her. Richard grabbed Emily's hair and yanked her head back. She gasped in pain. This little bitch destroyed my life. Cost me everything. Now I'm returning the favor. She gets to watch you die. Then I'm going to make her suffer in ways that will haunt her for whatever brief, miserable existence she has left before I dump her body in the river. Emily's eyes met Nicholas's. Despite the fear, despite the bruises, there was fury in her gaze. Fight. She wasn't broken yet. Nicholas felt something settle in his chest. Clarity. Purpose. He was going to kill every person in this warehouse. You made one mistake, Richard, Nicholas said quietly. What's that? You assumed I came here to surrender. Nicholas smiled. It was the smile that had terrified rivals and enemies for a decade. I came here to burn your world down. He moved. Fast. Faster than anyone expected from an unarmed man in the center of a kill box. Nicholas grabbed the nearest guard's weapon, a semi-automatic rifle, and drove his elbow into the man's throat. The guard went down choking. Nicholas spun and fired 3 rounds into the soldiers closest to Emily. Chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded from every direction. Nicholas dove behind a support column as bullets chewed apart the concrete where he'd been standing. He could hear Richard screaming orders, could hear Emily shouting something he couldn't make out over the gunfire. This was the signal. Luca would be moving now. Breaching from the south side, finding Emily, getting her out. Nicholas just had to keep everyone's attention on him. He leaned out and fired. Dropped 2 more soldiers. Pulled back as return fire shredded his cover. The rifle was almost empty. He checked the magazine, 3 rounds left, and looked for another weapon. A guard rushed his position. Nicholas shot him twice and took his pistol. Now he had options. Kill him! Richard's voice, high and panicked. What are you waiting for? Kill him now! More soldiers advanced. Nicholas counted 8 converging on his position from 3 sides. He fired methodically, 1 shot per target, center mass, no wasted ammunition. 4 went down. The others scattered. Then something punched Nicholas in the shoulder. He stumbled, looked down. Blood was spreading across his shirt from a bullet wound just below his collarbone. Not fatal. Not yet. But it hurt like hell, and his left arm was already going numb. Nicholas switched the pistol to his right hand and kept moving. Couldn't stay in one place. Had to keep them guessing. He ran for the next support column as gunfire tracked him. Made it. Barely. His shoulder was on fire. Blood was soaking through his shirt. He could feel it running down his ribs. Keep moving. Keep fighting. Buy Luca more time. Nicholas reloaded with his last magazine and did a quick count. Maybe 30 soldiers left standing. Still too many. But better than 55. From somewhere across the warehouse came the sound of an explosion. Luca's breach charge. The south wall blew inward in a cloud of smoke and debris. Luca's team poured through the opening, 20 men in tactical gear moving like a surgical strike team. They engaged the soldiers near Emily's position immediately. Richard realized what was happening. The girl! Protect the girl! Don't let them... Too late. One of Luca's men reached Emily, cut her zip ties, and hauled her to her feet. She fought him for a second, trying to look back toward Nicholas, then seemed to understand and let herself be dragged toward the breach point. No! Richard pulled a pistol and aimed at Emily's retreating form. Nicholas didn't think, just reacted. He stepped out from cover and fired. The bullet caught Richard in the shoulder and spun him around. The house manager's shot went wild, punching a hole in the ceiling. Every gun in the warehouse turned toward Nicholas. He dove for cover as the world exploded. Bullets tore through everything. The support column he'd been using disintegrated. Metal fragments and concrete dust filled the air. Nicholas's ears rang, his vision blurred. He was pinned down, completely exposed, and running out of ammunition. This was how it ended. Nicholas checked his pistol. 2 rounds left. From the breach point, he heard Luca shouting, "Boss, fall back! We've got Emily! Get out of there!" Nicholas couldn't fall back. There was nowhere to go. 30 soldiers between him and the exit. No cover, no backup. Just 2 bullets and a lot of very angry men. He looked across the warehouse. Through the smoke and chaos, he could see Emily fighting against Luca's grip, trying to run back toward Nicholas. Luca was physically restraining her, dragging her toward safety. Their eyes met across the impossible distance. Nicholas smiled, mouthed 3 words. "I love you." Then he stood up and charged. Emily screamed Nicholas's name until her throat bled. She watched him rise from behind the column, covered in blood, barely able to lift his left arm, moving like every step cost him, and start firing. He dropped 3 soldiers before they even realized he was coming, dropped 2 more before his gun clicked empty. Then he just kept running, straight into the heart of Bianchi's remaining forces. "No!" Emily tore free from the guard holding her and started running back. "Nicholas!" Luca caught her around the waist and lifted her off her feet. "We have to go, now!" "Let me go, he's going to die. He's buying us time, don't waste it." Luca was dragging her toward the breach. "Move, move." Emily couldn't stop watching, couldn't look away. Nicholas reached the first soldier and took him down with a brutal combination. Elbow to the face, knee to the gut, hands twisting until the man's neck snapped. He grabbed the falling soldier's weapon and used it to club another guard, fired point blank into a third. He was magnificent, terrifying, dying. Blood poured from his shoulder wound. His movements were getting slower, sloppier. There were too many of them. No matter how many he dropped, more closed in. A bullet caught Nicholas in the leg. He went down hard, tried to stand, couldn't. Emily's world stopped. "Nicholas!" She was still screaming his name when Luca shoved her through the breach into the freezing night air. Snow was falling. The Hudson churned nearby. Somewhere in the distance, sirens were wailing. Luca's team formed a protective circle around her, started moving toward the vehicles parked 2 blocks away. Emily fought every step. "We have to go back. We have to help him. He gave us an order." "I don't care about orders," Emily's voice cracked. "I'm not leaving him to die. He knew what he was doing. Then he was wrong." Emily stopped fighting, went completely still. "You want me to be the reason Nicholas Grimaldero died? You want me to live with that?" Luca stared at her. His expression was anguished, torn. Emily pressed her advantage. "Give me a weapon, right now, or I'm running back in there without one." "Emily." "Now, Luca." The second-in-command made a decision. He pulled a pistol from his belt and handed it to her. "Stay behind me. Don't do anything stupid. And if I say run, you run. Clear?" "Clear." They turned back toward the warehouse. Inside, gunfire had slowed. Either Nicholas was out of ammunition or he was out of strength. Emily's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might explode. "Please be alive. Please be alive. Please." The warehouse doors were still open. Luca's team regrouped and prepared to breach again. This time Emily was going with them. 3, 2, 1, go. They poured back through the opening. The scene inside was carnage, bodies everywhere, blood pooling on the concrete, the smell of gunpowder and death thick in the air. And in the center of it all, Nicholas knelt on the ground surrounded by 5 remaining soldiers. Blood covered him. His shoulder was destroyed, his leg barely holding him up, but his eyes were still defiant, still fighting. Richard Caldwell stood in front of him with a gun pressed to Nicholas's forehead. "Drop your weapons," Richard shouted at Luca's team. "Drop them now or I paint the floor with his brains." Luca's men froze, weapons still raised but fingers off triggers. Emily stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "Let him go, Richard." The house manager's head snapped toward her. "You're supposed to be gone." "I came back." Emily raised the pistol Luca had given her. Her hands were steady. Her voice was ice. "Let Nicholas go and I'll come with you quietly. That's what you want, isn't it? Me suffering. Fine. You can have that, but you let him live." "Emily, don't." Nicholas tried to stand. One of the soldiers kicked him back down. "Interesting proposal." Richard's smile was manic, unhinged. "But I think I'll take you both. Kill him in front of you, then spend the next few days making you wish I'd killed you too." "That wasn't the deal." "There is no deal," Richard screamed. "You don't get to negotiate. You don't get to make demands. You're nothing. You're a stupid little girl who destroyed my life and now you're going to pay for it." He pulled the trigger. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. Richard stared at the gun in confusion. "What?" Nicholas moved. Even wounded, even half dead, he was faster than Richard. Nicholas surged upward and drove his palm into the house manager's nose. Bone crunched. Blood exploded. Richard stumbled backward. Luca's team opened fire. The remaining Bianchi soldiers went down in seconds. Richard tried to run, made it 3 steps before one of Luca's men put 2 rounds in his back. The house manager collapsed, coughed blood, looked up at Nicholas with eyes full of hate and disbelief. "This isn't over," he gasped. Alessandro Bianchi is already dead." The voice came from the warehouse entrance. Everyone turned. A man in an expensive suit stood in the doorway, flanked by a dozen soldiers Emily didn't recognize. He was older, 60 maybe, with silver hair and a face like carved granite. Luca went white. "Don Carmine." Nicholas actually smiled despite the blood loss. "About time you showed up." Don Carmine Vitale walked into the warehouse like he owned it, which, in a sense, he did. He was the head of the commission, the ruling council that governed all 5 families. The closest thing organized crime had to a king. "Nicholas," Carmine's voice was cultured, almost gentle. "You look terrible." "I've had better nights." Nicholas was swaying on his feet. Emily moved to his side and he leaned against her heavily. "Alessandro." "Arrested by federal agents 20 minutes ago, along with most of his senior leadership." Carmine looked around the warehouse with mild distaste. "We've known about his ambitions for months. We simply needed him to make a move egregious enough to justify removing him, attacking another family head's home, attempting to murder a protected civilian, violating every territorial agreement we've established. He gave us everything we needed." "You used me as bait," Nicholas said. "I used you as an opportunity." Carmine's expression didn't change. "And you used yourself as a diversion to save someone you love. I'd say we both got what we wanted." Richard was still alive. Barely. He looked at Carmine with desperate hope. "Don Vitale, please, I can provide testimony against Bianchi. I can give you everything. You can give me nothing." Carmine didn't even look at him. "You're a civilian who involved himself in matters beyond his understanding. Your life is worth less than the bullet it would take to end it." He gestured. One of his soldiers put a round through Richard's skull. Emily flinched against Nicholas. The house manager's body slumped to the ground and didn't move again. "The police are 3 minutes out," Carmine said. "I suggest you leave before they arrive. This warehouse is about to become a federal crime scene, and I'd prefer you not be in the middle of it." "What about—" Nicholas gestured at the bodies. "Already handled. As far as the authorities will know, this was an internal dispute within the Bianchi organization. Gang violence. Nothing to do with you or Miss Turner." Carmine's eyes shifted to Emily. "Speaking of whom, you must be the young woman worth destroying an empire over." Emily didn't know what to say to that. Carmine smiled faintly. "Take care of him, Miss Turner. Nicholas Grimaldiro is one of the last honorable men in this business. We need him." He turned and walked out. His soldiers followed. Within seconds, they'd vanished into the night like ghosts. Emily looked at Nicholas. "What just happened?" "Carmine is the most dangerous man in New York." Nicholas's voice was fading. "He doesn't take sides. He just removes problems. Alessandro became a problem, so Carmine removed him." "And you?" "I'm useful. For now." Nicholas's leg gave out. He would have fallen if Emily and Luca hadn't caught him. "We should go. Before the police show up and start asking questions, I can't answer." Luca was already on his radio calling for their vehicles. 2 SUVs pulled up outside the warehouse moments later. They got Nicholas into the back of one while Luca's team secured the perimeter. Emily climbed in beside him. Nicholas was fading fast. Too much blood loss, too much damage. His eyes kept trying to close. "Stay with me," Emily demanded. "Don't you dare die after all this." "Not planning on it." Nicholas managed a weak smile. "I made you a promise. I keep my promises." "What promise?" "That I'd never let you go." His hand found hers, squeezed weakly. "You came back for me." "Of course I did. I love you, you idiot." Tears were streaming down Emily's face. "I'm not losing you." "Good. Because I have plans." Nicholas's eyes drifted closed. "Big plans. You and me. After all this is over." "What kind of plans?" But Nicholas had passed out. The SUV raced through the snowy streets toward a private doctor Luca kept on retainer for exactly this kind of emergency. Emily held Nicholas's hand and refused to let go. His pulse was weak but steady, his breathing shallow but present. He was alive. They'd both survived. Luca looked back from the front seat. You know what you just did back there? Running back into a firefight to save him? I know it was stupid. It was exactly what he would have done for you. Luca's expression was almost approving. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the craziest. Maybe both. Emily looked down at Nicholas, at the man who'd saved her from a blizzard and then walked into hell to save her again. He's worth it. Yeah. Luca turned back around. He really is. The SUV disappeared into the night, carrying them away from the warehouse, away from Richard Caldwell's corpse, away from the war that had nearly destroyed them both. Behind them, police sirens grew louder, but they were already gone. Nicholas woke up 3 days later in a bedroom he didn't recognize. Sunlight streamed through windows overlooking snow-covered mountains. Medical equipment beeped nearby. His shoulder and leg were wrapped in professional bandages. An IV dripped clear fluid into his arm. And Emily slept in a chair beside his bed, her hand resting on top of his. Nicholas squeezed gently. Emily's eyes opened immediately. You're awake. Her voice was rough from crying and exhaustion. Finally, I was starting to think you'd sleep forever. How long? 3 days. You lost a lot of blood. The doctor had to repair your shoulder and remove the bullet from your leg. You're going to have scars. Add them to the collection. Nicholas tried to sit up. Pain exploded through his body. Where are we? The Adirondack safe house. The one Richard attacked. Emily helped him settle back against the pillows. Luca brought us here after the doctor stabilized you. Figured it was the last place anyone would look. Smart. Nicholas's throat was dry. Water? Emily held a cup with a straw to his lips. He drank and felt more human. What happened with the police? Carmine was right. They ruled it gang violence. Alessandro Bianchi is facing federal racketeering charges. Most of his organization collapsed. The other families are dividing up his territory. Emily set down the cup. You're in the clear. Officially, you were never there. And Richard? Dead? Finally. Emily's expression hardened. I watched Carmine's man shoot him. I should feel bad about that. I don't. Don't apologize for surviving. Nicholas caught her hand. You came back for me. In the warehouse. Why? Because you're an idiot who runs into blizzards to save people. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Because you walked into a trap knowing you'd probably die and you did it anyway. Because I love you and I wasn't going to let you sacrifice yourself when I could do something about it. Nicholas pulled her closer, ignored the screaming pain in his shoulder. I had a plan. Your plan was terrible. You almost died. But I didn't. We both made it. Nicholas brushed tears off her cheeks. I told you I'd keep my promise, that I'd never let you go. You also told me you had big plans, like... Emily managed a watery smile. What kind of plans? Nicholas looked at her. At the girl who'd broken a vase and changed his entire world, who'd survived Richard's cruelty and Alessandro's ambition and a war she never asked to be part of, who'd run back into gunfire to save him when any sane person would have run the other way. She was extraordinary, and she was his. The kind that involve you staying with me, Nicholas said. Permanently, if you want. Emily's breath caught. Are you asking me? Not yet. I'm barely conscious and I don't have a ring. When I ask you to marry me, Emily Turner, I'm going to do it properly. Nicholas smiled despite the pain. But I'm telling you that's where this is going. So if you want to run, now's your chance. Emily laughed. It sounded like relief and joy and something brighter than Nicholas had ever heard from her. I'm not running. I've never been very good at that anyway. Good. Nicholas closed his eyes. Stay with me, just for a little while. I'm not going anywhere. Emily curled up in the chair beside his bed, her hand still holding his. Nicholas drifted back to sleep feeling safer than he had in years. Outside, snow continued to fall on the mountains. The war was over. Richard was dead. Alessandro was destroyed. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Nicholas Grimaldiero could breathe without wondering who was coming to take everything away. He had survived. They both had. And now they had the rest of their lives to figure out what came next. Winter held the Adirondack Mountains in its grip for 3 more weeks. Nicholas healed slowly. The shoulder wound had shredded muscle and nicked bone, the kind of damage that left permanent limitations even with the best medical care. The leg was better but still required physical therapy that left him sweating and cursing every morning. The doctor, a retired military surgeon who asked no questions and accepted cash, visited every other day to check his progress and change his bandages. Emily rarely left his side. She brought him meals Maria sent up from the city in insulated containers, read to him when the pain was too bad to sleep, helped him through the excruciating process of relearning how to walk without limping. And at night, when the nightmares came, replays of gunfire and Richard's face and Emily tied to that chair, she held him until the shaking stopped. They didn't talk about the future. Not yet. The present was hard enough. Luca visited on the 10th day with news from the city. Alessandro Bianchi had taken a plea deal to avoid life in prison. 20 years in a federal supermax in exchange for testimony against corrupt officials in his organization. The Bianchi family territories had been carved up among the remaining families. Carmine Vitale had personally overseen the redistribution to ensure no one got ambitious enough to start another war. And us? Nicholas asked. He was sitting in a chair by the window, his leg propped up, watching snow fall on the endless trees. You're clear. Officially retired from active operations pending recovery. Luca's expression was carefully neutral. Carmine sent a message. He says you've earned a rest. Take as much time as you need. When you're ready to come back, your territory will be waiting. And if I'm not ready to come back? Luca looked startled. Boss, you can't be serious. I almost died, Luca. Emily almost died. How many more times do we tempt fate before it stops being generous? Nicholas shifted in the chair, wincing at the pain that shot through his shoulder. I built an empire because I thought it would make me powerful, safe, untouchable. And all it did was paint a target on the back of the one person who actually matters to me. So what are you saying? I'm saying I don't know yet. Nicholas looked at Emily, who was reading on the couch across the room. She'd been pretending not to listen, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. I'm saying maybe there's a different life available if I'm brave enough to take it. Luca followed his gaze. Understanding dawned. You're thinking about walking away, completely. I'm thinking about what I want versus what I've convinced myself I need. Nicholas turned back to the window. You can run the operations in my absence. You've been doing most of the heavy lifting for years anyway. And if I decide not to come back, it's yours. All of it. You've earned it. Boss, think about it. That's all I'm asking. Nicholas's voice was tired. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not Nicholas Grimaldiro, the crime boss. When I'm just Nicholas. And I can't do that while I'm still running an empire. Luca left an hour later looking troubled and uncertain. Emily waited until his SUV disappeared down the snowy road before setting down her book. Were you serious? She asked. About walking away? I don't know. Nicholas hadn't moved from the window. Part of me thinks it's insane. Everything I've built, everything I've fought for, just gone. And the other part? The other part remembers what it felt like to kneel on that warehouse floor with a gun to my head, knowing I was about to die. And my only thought was that I'd never get to see you again. Nicholas finally looked at her. I've spent 10 years being afraid of being powerless, but the only time I've ever felt truly helpless was when I thought I'd lost you. That's a different kind of fear, Emily, the kind that changes everything. Emily set down her book and crossed to him, knelt in front of his chair, and took his hands. You don't have to decide anything right now. You're still healing, still processing. Give yourself time. What if I walk away and regret it? What if I become one of those men who had power and gave it up and spent the rest of his life wishing he could get it back? Then you'll have that regret, but you'll be alive to feel it, and you'll have me. Emily squeezed his hands. I can't tell you what to do, Nicholas. This has to be your choice. But I can tell you that I don't need you to be a crime boss. I don't need the mansion or the empire or any of it. I just need you, whatever version of you that is. Nicholas pulled her up into his lap, ignoring the protest from his injured leg, held her close and breathed in the scent of her hair, something floral and clean that had become the only thing that calmed him when the nightmares got bad. I love you, he said into her shoulder. That's the only thing I'm sure of anymore. Then start there, Emily whispered back. Everything else we can figure out together. They sat like that for a long time while the snow continued to fall, and the future remained uncertain and terrifying and somehow full of possibility anyway. So, spring came to the mountains 6 weeks later. Nicholas could walk without limping by then, could lift his left arm almost to shoulder height. The scars were thick and pink and ugly, but functional. The nightmares had faded from every night to once or twice a week. He was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but healing. Emily had started taking online classes again, business management courses through her community college. She worked on assignments at the kitchen table while Nicholas did physical therapy exercises in the living room. Sometimes Maria visited and cooked elaborate meals that filled the safe house with warmth and the kind of casual domesticity Nicholas had never experienced before. It was the most normal he'd ever felt, and it terrified him. On the first truly warm day of the year, Nicholas found Emily sitting on the back porch watching the forest come alive with green. She had her laptop open but wasn't working, just staring at the trees with an expression he couldn't read. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, easing into the chair beside her. "My mom." Emily didn't look at him. "She died when I was 7, cancer. I don't remember much about her except that she used to say home wasn't a place. It was a feeling, a sense that you belonged somewhere with someone." Sounds wise. I never understood what she meant until now. Emily finally turned to him. "I've lived in 23 different places since she died. Foster homes, group homes, shelters, apartments. None of them ever felt like home. They were just buildings I existed in while I waited for the next disaster. And now? Now I'm in a safe house in the middle of nowhere with a man who runs a criminal empire, and I feel more at home than I ever have in my life." Emily laughed softly. "That's probably not healthy." "Probably not." Nicholas reached for her hand. "But I know what you mean. I've lived in the mansion for 10 years, and it never felt like anything except a symbol of what I'd accomplished. A monument to my own ego. But when you were there, when you brought me coffee and decorated for Christmas and called me out for being scared, it became something else. Something I actually cared about losing." "What changed?" "You made it real." Nicholas pulled her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. "You made everything real." Emily was quiet for a moment, then she said, "I got an email yesterday from a company in Boston. They're offering me an internship. Business development, paid. It's exactly the kind of opportunity I've been working toward for years." Nicholas felt his stomach drop. "That's amazing. When do you start?" "I haven't accepted yet." Emily pulled her hand back. "Because I don't know what we're doing, Nicholas. I don't know if you're staying in New York or leaving, if you're going back to the mansion or selling it, if you want me with you, or if this was just—" She stopped herself. "I need to know where we stand. Not next month or next year, now, because I can't keep living in limbo." Nicholas had known this conversation was coming, had been dreading it for weeks. But Emily deserved better than his uncertainty. "I met with Carmine last week," he said. "Luca drove me into the city while you were at the grocery store. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure what I was going to say to him." Emily went very still. "And?" "I told him I was stepping back. Not permanently, not a full retirement, but a significant reduction in my involvement. Luca takes over day-to-day operations. I remain available for major decisions and crisis management, but I'm no longer running the organization." "What did he say?" "He said I was getting soft." Nicholas smiled slightly. "Then he said soft men live longer than hard ones, and that he approved the transition as long as I remained loyal to the commission and didn't create a power vacuum that would destabilize things." "So you're really doing it, walking away." "Stepping back," Nicholas corrected. "I can't walk away completely. I have too many obligations, too many people who depend on me. But I can create distance, build a different kind of life that isn't consumed by territory and violence, and constantly looking over my shoulder." "What does that life look like?" Nicholas took a breath. This was the moment. The question he'd been building toward since he woke up in this safe house and realized he'd been given a second chance. "It looks like you and me, wherever that takes us." He stood up despite the protest from his healing leg and held out his hand. "Come with me. There's something I need to show you." Emily took his hand, let him lead her through the safe house and out the front door to where his SUV was parked. He opened the passenger door for her, then climbed into the driver's seat. "Where are we going?" Emily asked. "You'll see." They drove for 40 minutes down winding mountain roads as the forest gradually gave way to small towns and open fields. Nicholas pulled off onto a private drive marked only by a weathered wooden sign that read, "Grimaldiro Property, no trespassing." The drive wound through trees for another mile before opening into a clearing, and there, overlooking a pristine lake with mountains rising behind it, sat a house. Not a mansion, not a fortress, just a house. 2 stories of warm wood and stone and glass that reflected the water like a mirror. It looked new, carefully designed, nothing like the cold monument Nicholas had lived in for a decade. Emily stared. "What is this?" "Something I started building 3 years ago and never finished." Nicholas parked in front of the house and killed the engine. "I bought this land because it was beautiful and private. Hired an architect to design something that felt like a home instead of a statement. Started construction and then got too busy with business to follow through. It's been sitting here half finished for 2 years. He got out and walked to the front door, unlocked it, held it open for Emily. She stepped inside and her breath caught. The interior was stunning. An open floor plan with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. A kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine. A stone fireplace big enough to heat the entire first floor. Exposed beams and hardwood floors and carefully placed lighting that made everything feel warm and inviting. It was perfect. And it was empty. "I called the contractor last month," Nicholas said. "Told him to finish it. Rush job. Whatever it cost." He gestured around the space. "He completed it last week." Emily turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "Why?" "Because I needed to know if I could build something that wasn't about power or control. Something that was just for me. For us." Nicholas moved to stand in front of her. "This house has no security system beyond basic locks. No safe rooms, no guards. It's just a house on a lake where a person could live a quiet life if they wanted to." "Nicholas, I know what I'm asking is insane. I know you have opportunities in Boston and a whole life ahead of you that doesn't involve a semi-retired criminal with more baggage than any sane person should tolerate." Nicholas took her hands. "But I'm asking anyway. Stay with me. Here. Build a life with me that doesn't revolve around surviving the next crisis. Let me prove that I can be more than what I've been for the last 10 years. Emily's eyes were bright with tears. "You already proved that. You proved it when you ran into a blizzard to save me. When you walked into that warehouse knowing you'd probably die. When you chose me over your empire. I'll always choose you." Nicholas pulled a small box from his pocket. "Which is why I need to ask you this properly." He dropped to one knee. His legs screamed in protest. He ignored it. Emily's hands flew to her mouth. Nicholas opened the box. Inside was a sapphire ring, deep blue like midnight, surrounded by small diamonds that caught the sunlight streaming through the windows. "Emily Turner, I'm not asking you to marry a crime boss or a powerful man or someone who has all the answers. I'm asking you to marry me. Nicholas. Just Nicholas. The man who makes terrible decisions and has more scars than sense and loves you more than he's ever loved anything in his life." His voice cracked slightly. "Will you marry me?" Emily was crying now, full-on sobbing, but she was also smiling wider than Nicholas had ever seen. "Yes." The word came out choked but certain. "Yes, you idiot. Of course I'll marry you." Nicholas slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. Then he stood up, leg be damned, and kissed her like they had all the time in the world, because for the first time since this nightmare began, they did. Chas. They were married in September on the deck overlooking the lake. It was a small ceremony. Maria stood as Emily's witness and cried through the entire thing. Lucas stood as Nicholas's best man and looked vaguely uncomfortable in a suit. The officiant was a local justice of the peace who had no idea who Nicholas Grimaldiro was and didn't care. Emily wore a simple white dress she'd found at a boutique in town. Nicholas wore a dark suit without a tie. They said their vows while the sun set over the mountains and turned the lake into liquid gold. "I promise to choose you every day," Nicholas said, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Not because you need protecting or saving, but because my life is better with you in it. Because you make me want to be more than I was. Because loving you is the bravest thing I've ever done." Emily's vows were simpler. I promise to stay, through the nightmares and the scars and whatever comes next. Because you're worth staying for, because we're worth fighting for, because I'm not afraid of your past or your world as long as I get to be part of your future. They exchanged rings, kissed while Maria applauded, and Luca tried not to look emotional. The reception was dinner at the house, just the four of them and enough food to feed 20. Maria had cooked for 3 days straight. They ate and drank wine and told stories about the mansion and Richard's tyranny and the night everything changed. To surviving, Luca said, raising his glass, and to being stupid enough to run back into a firefight for someone you love. To being stupid, Nicholas agreed, looking at Emily, and to second chances. They clinked glasses and drank while the moon rose over the lake and the first stars appeared. Later, after Maria and Luca had driven back to the city and the house was quiet, Nicholas and Emily stood on the deck wrapped in each other's arms. "Do you regret it?" Emily asked quietly. "Giving up the empire?" "I didn't give it up. I just stopped letting it consume me." Nicholas kissed the top of her head. "Luca runs operations. I consult when needed. It's enough, more than enough. And when you get bored of playing house by the lake, then we'll figure something out together." Nicholas turned her to face him. "This isn't retirement, Emily. It's a different kind of life. One where I'm not constantly waiting for the next attack. Where I can actually build something that lasts. With you." Emily touched his face, traced the scar above his eyebrow from the night the bullet shattered his study window. "I love you, Nicholas Grimaldiro." "I love you, Emily Grimaldiro." He tested the name, liked how it sounded. "Has a nice ring to it. Terrible pun. You married me anyway." "Biggest mistake of my life." But Emily was smiling as she said it. They went inside as the temperature dropped, built a fire in the massive fireplace, and sat together on the couch watching the flames dance. Outside, the lake was dark and peaceful. No guards, no security system, no enemies plotting their destruction. Just two people who'd survived hell and somehow found their way to something that felt like home. 1 year later, Emily stood in the mansion's front entryway and marveled at how different everything looked. The space where the Medici vase had shattered was still there. Same marble floor, same grand staircase, but it felt warmer now. Less like a museum and more like a place where people actually lived. Christmas decorations hung from the banister, carefully placed by a new decorating team that Emily had personally trained. The smell of Maria's cooking drifted from the kitchen. Voices echoed from the dining room, where the household staff were setting up for Christmas Eve dinner. Nicholas appeared at the top of the stairs, moving easily now. The limp was almost gone. The shoulder still bothered him in cold weather, but he'd learned to work around it. "Everything ready?" he asked, descending the stairs with the same controlled grace he'd always had. "Almost. Maria wants your opinion on the wine pairings." "Again." Emily rolled her eyes. "She's asked you 4 times. She's particular. She's driving me insane." But Emily was smiling. "How's the situation in Brooklyn?" "Handled. Luca negotiated a peace with the Russians. Everybody gets a peace. Nobody starts a war." Nicholas reached the bottom of the stairs and pulled Emily into his arms. "I'm officially off the clock for the next 3 days. No business, no phone calls, just you and me and too much food. And the 20 people we invited for dinner. Details." Emily laughed and kissed him. Over the past year, they had developed a rhythm. Nicholas consulted on major family business from the lake house, traveling to the city when absolutely necessary. Emily had declined the Boston internship and instead started working with Maria to modernize the mansion's household management, implementing better staff policies, fair wages, protections against the kind of abuse Richard had inflicted. She'd also enrolled in an MBA program, online, flexible. Nicholas had offered to pay for it, but Emily had refused. She was using the money she'd saved from her salary and a small business loan, building something that was hers. They split their time between the lake house and the mansion, peaceful isolation when they needed it, proximity to the city when business demanded. It wasn't perfect. There were still nightmares, still moments when the past came roaring back, but they were managing, together. The doorbell rang. Their first guests arriving. Emily went to answer it while Nicholas headed to the kitchen to deal with Maria's wine crisis. The evening unfolded in a blur of food and conversation and laughter. The mansion that had once been a cold monument to Nicholas's power was full of life now. Maria's extended family, Luca and his new girlfriend, a few of Nicholas's most trusted associates and their partners. Even the household staff joined for dessert, something that would have been unthinkable under Richard's management. Emily moved through the rooms, making sure everyone had what they needed, caught Nicholas watching her from across the dining room with an expression that still made her breath catch. He'd been doing that more lately, looking at her like he was memorizing her face, like he still couldn't quite believe she was real. Around midnight, after most of the guests had left and the staff had retreated to their quarters, Emily found Nicholas in his study. He was standing by the windows that had been replaced after the attack, bulletproof glass now, a concession to reality, staring out at the snowy grounds. "You okay?" Emily asked from the doorway. "I was just thinking about last year." Nicholas turned to face her, about how close we came to losing everything. "But we didn't. Because you refused to give up on me. Because you ran back into that warehouse when any sane person would have kept running." Nicholas crossed to her. "I never thanked you for that, for being brave enough to save me when I was ready to die for you." "You don't need to thank me. We saved each other." Emily took his hands. "That's what this is, Nicholas. We're a team. When one of us is drowning, the other swims out to pull them back. That's the deal. Best deal I ever made." Nicholas pulled something from his pocket, a small, wrapped box. "I have something for you. It's not Christmas yet. Open it anyway." Emily unwrapped the box. Inside was a key, simple, brass, with a tag attached that read Turner Foundation, Boston office. She looked up at Nicholas in confusion. "What is this?" "You turned down the Boston internship for me. I know you said it was your choice, but I also know you sacrificed an opportunity you'd worked years for." Nicholas's expression was careful. "So I made some calls, pulled some strings, set up a foundation in your name dedicated to helping kids aging out of foster care, job training, college scholarships, housing assistance, all the things you needed and never got." Emily's throat closed. "Nicholas, the Boston office opens next month. You'd be the director, full control over hiring and programs and budget. It's yours, Emily, everything you wanted to build, if you want it." "That's too much. It's not enough." Nicholas framed her face with his hands. "You gave up your plans to stay with me. Let me give you new plans. Better ones. Ones where you help hundreds of kids like you were. Where you make a real difference instead of just surviving." Tears streamed down Emily's face. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it. Say you'll consider splitting your time between here and Boston. I can handle a few extra trips. And we have the lake house for when you need quiet." Nicholas wiped her tears away gently. "I love you, Emily. I want you to have everything you deserve, even if that means sharing you with the world." Emily threw her arms around his neck and held on like he was the only solid thing in a shifting world. "I love you so much. You know that, right?" "I know. You prove it every day just by being here." Nicholas held her close. "So is that a yes?" "It's a yes to thinking about it. A yes to figuring it out together." Emily pulled back to look at him. "And a yes to whatever comes next, as long as you're in it." They kissed while snow drifted past the windows and the grandfather clock in the corner chimed midnight. Christmas Day. A year and a day since Emily had broken a vase and nearly died in a blizzard and met a man who would change her entire world. She'd been so afraid that night, afraid of losing her job, afraid of freezing to death, afraid that she'd never matter to anyone. Now she stood in the same mansion wrapped in the arms of a man who'd gone to war for her, who'd built her a house by a lake and a foundation in Boston, and a life she'd never imagined she could have. Emily Turner, Emily Grimaldiro now, had learned something important in the year since that terrible Christmas Eve. Fear was real. Danger was real. The scars and nightmares and trauma were all real. But so was love. And love was stronger than all of it. "Merry Christmas," Nicholas whispered against her hair. "Merry Christmas," Emily whispered back. Outside, the blizzard from a year ago was just a memory. Inside, warmth and light and laughter filled every corner of the mansion that had almost been Emily's tomb and had instead become her home. They'd survived. Both of them. Against impossible odds and terrible enemies and their own fears. And now they had the rest of their lives to build something beautiful from the ashes of what had almost destroyed them. Together. Always together. That was the promise. The one that mattered more than any vow or ring or empire. They would choose each other, every day, through whatever storms came next, and this time neither of them would face the cold alone.